you ever going to start this podcast you've been talking about for like forever?
Do you think that anyone will actually want to listen to something like this?
What is your plan for an introduction?
Are you sure you want to talk about these topics? People usually disagree.
3 hours? Are you crazy?
Do you think you're some kind of expert or something?
Are you planning to have an intro song?
What if a bunch of people get really mad and hate you over this?
Do you even know how to make a podcast?
Are you just doing this because you like to argue with people?
Don't let this be just one more thing that you talk about doing, but never actually do.
Wouldn't it be better to do just one episode for each topic?
Stop trying to change people's opinions. Just live your own life.
Dude, people are never going to agree. Just let it go.
Is this going to be a long intro? Because if it is, I'm bored already.
Hello, thanks for tuning in to episode 2 of Why Can't We Talk About That? This week, my guest is Cindie Usevich. We discuss many different topics like the music of Girl In A Coma, Fitz And The Tantrums, Foxboro Hottubs, Alec Benjamin, and Lizzo. We also discuss selling out, feminism, the gender pay gap, gender roles, abortion, abstinence teaching, shaving our beards in the shape of an octopus, what the Bible means, Neanderthals, and evolution. Cindie discussed the matters of abortion, sexism, and gender roles in a more civil and intelligent way than anyone I have ever spoken to about these topics. So if you are hoping for a death match where I'm called an ignorant male chauvinist simply for giving my opinion on the matter of abortion and gender roles, you will be sorely disappointed. This was a great discussion that I learned a lot from. I hope that you will too. Enjoy the conversation. And the rest is history, as they say.
Well, now that we have these dogs that we have purchased and or found together and raised together, he is in love with our dogs. Especially our girls. The old man is the Boston, and we're actually going to put him down in a few weeks.
Oh, no.
He's 11. 11 and a half. But it's just the medication's keeping him alive.
Oh, that's a bummer.
It's just never going to get better.
Yeah. We're already going, by the way. I mean, keep talking about whatever you want. I'm just saying,
ahead.
Don't say anything incriminating. Well, I'll say that too. Is if there's anything said that you're like, cut that out, because the first one I did was the same. There was a couple things. He's like, yeah, why don't you cut that out?
Cut that.
And as I was editing it, I texted him. I said, hey, were you serious about wanting me to cut that out, or were you joking? And he goes, oh no, please cut that out. I said, okay, I'll eliminate that from the record. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So we're going to say goodbye to our old man, and we'll just have the two girls, and we've rescued both of them in the last year and a half, and my husband is absolutely just smitten. So it's very much come around to where he's, and now he'll say, I'm a small dog person. And I'm like, yeah, when we met, you were just like I'm a dog person.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You turned him. You made him a big time dog person.
I guess. Yeah, I guess. But we'll always have small dogs.
Yeah.
I grew up with boxers, so I love boxers.
See, the street I grew up on, the people that lived like 2 doors down from me, they bred boxers.
Oh.
And it was like every time I went over there, I mean, they're really cool. I mean, they look like tanks. They're structured, but they jump all over you. They're slobbery. I mean, it was like once a week I would see the dog bolting down the street at 1,000,000 miles an hour and see the owner running after it, trying to get it, And I was like, oh my gosh. So I made a decision right there. I was like, I don't want boxers. And then that was when I was a kid, and then I grew up, and then we made some other friends with these people, go over to their house. Well, they had like 3 boxers, and the same deal. They're jumping all over you, and they're, but they loved them. But I was like, I don't think I want a boxer. I want a big dog.
Yeah.
And that's something Bethany and I are talking about when, she finally goes.
Sure.
But, it's like, well, I don't know. I kind of want one that's going to protect me if there's anybody trying to break in or any, you know what I mean?
Or at least have a deep enough bark that's going to like scare.
Yeah. I mean, she's, people just think she's the cutest thing in the world when she's trying to be tough. So,
Our boxer had a really bad bark, like deep, but if you got close to him, he'd just lick you. I mean, it was the look and the sound, but nothing else to back it up.
I wonder if he would, like if someone broke in, like somebody that he knew you weren't okay with.
Maybe.
Because he can probably make the distinction. Okay, this guy comes in the house. I don't know him, but mom and dad seem to like him.
Yeah.
They're talking to him. They're shaking his hand. They're laughing with him. So then the dog's like, well, he must be a good guy.
Yeah.
Everybody's sleeping and some guy breaks in the window or something. I don't know. I wonder if they'd think,
I mean, luckily we never had to do that.
Right.
You know, we never had that situation.
Yeah.
But
we haven't either. I mean,
Yeah.
thankfully. But I mean, we do hear about it around our neighborhood.
oh, sure.
There's a lot of it.
Oh,
So
sure.
It's unfortunate. But,
I know.
You know,
I know.
it is what it is. So, all right. Well, hey, thanks for coming.
Hey,
This is
thanks
awesome.
for having me.
This is really cool. This is you're for my first female guest I've had.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I only have one more lined up, so I need to get more females. I have
Okay.
a lot of males.
Okay.
So, like, come on, women. I know you want to talk about this stuff too. Come on.
Sure.
But anyway. All right. Well, I think usually I start with music.
Okay.
Because that's kind of generally a non-controversial kind of thing. But it's funny that with the last one I did, I was talking about how it's usually non-controversial, but then this is what got us talking about Weezer in the first one. But there's some SNL skit. Did I tell you about this? A friend of mine showed me this SNL skit. I think it was Matt Damon. It was Matt Damon was the special guest, but it was like this new family moves to the neighborhood and they're all having a dinner party to get to know each other. There's like 3 couples there and everything's going really good and everybody's really nice until one of them brings up Weezer and says something like, Weezer's my favorite band or whatever. And the woman goes, I mean, only the first 2 albums, everything after that was crap, and what? What is it? And then eventually they're just yelling at each other about Weezer and about how, oh man, what about this album? This one was great. No, only the first 2 albums. Anything past Pinkerton was horrible and blah, blah, blah. Like all these. So I'm like, I guess music can be contentious, but generally it's not. So yeah, I just like to start there because some of the other politics and spirituality can get dicey depending on, who you're talking to, I guess. So
you want to ease into it?
We'll ease into it, yeah. And plus, I like the idea that for me, and I think for a lot of people, those 3 things intermix anyway.
Okay.
Like people that are very political tend to like bands that are politically leaning their direction, vice versa. People that are spiritual tend to like music that go that, in some senses.
Okay.
Right? So I'll start with this. What would you say is your favorite genre of music, if you could pick one?
Okay, so I was going to preface this with, this is probably going to be the most boring segment that I have the least amount to contribute.
You'd be surprised. We find a band we both like, and we'll talk for an hour on it.
I'm sure, but I don't study bands. And I think if you get more female people to interview, you will realize that I think many times females approach music differently than males do.
For sure, totally.
Because males are very, clinical, and they like parse it out, and women typically are emotional, right? And so they pick the music that really speaks to them. And so I don't sit and like pour over the liner notes, or do they have liner notes anymore?
They do if you buy a CD.
What's that?
Yeah, I think I might be the only one on the planet that still buys CD.
Oh no, we have thousands.
Oh, good.
Oh yeah.
Good. Okay.
No, but when I was a kid, I guess maybe we'd get cassette tapes and we'd open them up and we would memorize the lyrics just so that we knew what we were singing.
Right.
But I don't parse out music like that. So first I go off of my upbringing, right? Because that's your first influence. My brother is 9 years older than me. So I got exposed to Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, The Doors, The Who.
Good stuff.
My brother's a huge The Who fan, right?
Me too.
And so I got to listen to that stuff, whereas kids my age had no idea what that was, right?
Right.
My mom was really into kind of, I guess you would call it blues, so like Carlos Santana and Eric Clapton that so I grew up with that kind of stuff too. And so I think that's where you take your first model, and then when you get to be, I don't know, what age do you really define your own music?
Right. See, that's a good question. Right?
Yeah.
Because I think we all have that. For me, it was 91.
Okay.
Like for me, 91 was the best music year ever, but you talk to people and they all have a different year,
okay.
Depending on, I think it has to do with at age you're at and the time of life you're in. because a lot of those songs from that time, you look back on it and you reminisce about the time that you
Well,
were
there
in,
is nostalgia there,
right,
for sure.
Right.
But think about this. I'm going to get all like psychological. You didn't know I was a psychologist. Think about how old you were in 91 and all the things you were doing as far as you were growing and developing and maturing and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So of course that music speaks to you because of where you were in your life.
Yeah.
I think my first love, of course, was New Kids on the Block.
Ooh, nice.
I was 10. Every girl was into it. I wanted to go to their concert was playing on my 10th birthday, and we couldn't get tickets.
Oh no!
And I was so bummed. I was so bummed. We were gonna go. So but then strangely enough, I go from New Kids on the Block. I went right into Poison. So I got really into the hair bands.
Nice.
And we're talking, you know, late 80s, early 90s.
Right.
And super in love with Bret Michaels. So for a girl at that point, it's what boys were cute that were
right. Yeah, exactly. Totally. Yeah.
And then from there in high school, it went to rap. So how do I go from Bret Michaels to Snoop Dogg?
There you go.
Well, it's your influences and what's coming out. I mean, Doggy Style came out in 94.
Yeah, I think so.
I was in high school.
Yeah.
That was like quintessential. That's what you were, you know.
You're the same age as me, right? You graduated
Yes.
in 96?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was about the same for me too.
Yeah. So high school was Dr. Dre, The Chronic, Doggy Style.
Yeah.
I mean, like Tupac, that was a huge thing.
Yeah.
And that's what all my friends were into, right? So that's what we did.
Yeah.
Do I listen to rap now? Only that stuff I listened to back then.
Because most of the new rap sucks anyway.
It
so
sucks.
Yeah, it's so bad. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it is. There's every once in a while there's a diamond in there.
Yeah.
But you got to search really hard to find it. And when I find a new rapper today that I like, I get really excited and I go buy everything they've ever done.
Yeah.
There's one right now, Tom McDonald. I'm really into him. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
No.
I like him. I think he's really good. He's controversial in his lyrics and stuff because he's very political in his rap. But yeah, for me, I mean, I started with the early the 80s stuff, Run DMC, LL Cool J. That's where I started.
LL
with rap.
Cool J.
Yeah, right. Like the early stuff.
Had that cassette tape.
So then I morphed into like the gangster rap with NWA and Eazy-E, and then I loved Too Short when I was growing up, all that kind of stuff. And then that morphed into, but see, back then I was like rap only. Anything other than rap sucks. Just get away from me with your guitars and all that, right?
Yeah.
And then I went to about 90-91 is when grunge happened.
Yeah.
Right? So then you had your Pearl Jam, your Alice in Chains, your Nirvana. Your Soundgarden, you know, all these different ones. And that just grabbed a hold of me.
Faith No More.
Faith No More, yeah. That's another good one. I was cracking up. We were in Chuck E. Cheese. This is years ago. We were in Chuck E. Cheese, and you know how they have the songs that play and all the Chuck E. Cheese characters sing the songs?
Yes.
And Chuck E. Cheese is singing, and my friend goes, dude, do you remember that band Faith No More? I said, yeah. He goes, tell me that doesn't sound exactly like the singer from Faith No More. And I listened to it and I go, oh my gosh, dude, it totally does. Chuck E. Cheese sounds like the Faith No More guy. Yeah, I was like, maybe this is what he does now. Maybe he retired from music and he's just like, well, I got to do something, you know.
It's just a Chuck E. Cheese voice now.
Right, exactly. So so that was another good one too. But yeah, so that opened up a whole new world to me. Metallica, which was of course been around for a long time, but I'd never even heard of Metallica.
No, me neither.
Until the Black Album came out in '91.
Black Album.
Like, okay, there you go. And then I started listening to their back catalog and going, oh man, this is awesome. These guys are really, really good, you know. But yeah, so then that led me to going to see Pearl Jam in must have been 93, 94. And then Bad Religion opened up for them. And that was my foray into punk rock. And to this day, that's been my favorite genre of music. As I think
we've talked about that before too.
Right.
And see, punk rock is so, like we've talked about before, punk rock is so many subgenres, right? So many ways you can take it. Yes. And so if I say, well, I like punk, and you go, oh, well, do you like so-and-so? And I'm like, no, they suck. And you're like, well, then you don't like punk.
Yeah.
But it's not, it's just, I care for this type of punk over that type of punk, right? And you were what did you tell me to listen to?
I don't remember. Oh, Black Sails in the Sunset.
Yes.
By AFI. Didn't like it, huh?
No.
Oh.
I don't like the sound.
Is it too fast? Is
it's
that why?
too fast.
Oh, okay.
It's too hard. It's too angry.
Okay.
So in cultivating my sound, right, over the years, I really do listen to everything. When I was in my rap phase, I was also simultaneously into a country phase.
Okay.
So go figure.
Yeah.
Because I do think at that time that 90s music that they played on the radio sucked. I think 90s was the worst decade for music.
You still
ever.
feel that way?
I still feel that way.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely.
Crazy.
I still feel that way.
Okay.
I think 90s sucked. When I think of 90s, all I think of is like Wilson Phillips. And I mean, like, it was just awful.
Yeah.
It was awful. But I guess what I'm saying is the radio stuff was awful.
Right.
They didn't play Nirvana on the radio, hardly.
Not really. It smells like Teen Spirit, maybe, but
that one, but nothing else from Nevermind.
Right.
You know, they didn't really play Pearl Jam unless it was Jeremy. But you know, you never heard the rest of the 10 album, and that push play and walk away.
Right.
You put Pearl Jam 10 in. Every song.
Yeah.
Solid.
That might possibly be the best album ever made. It's hard for me to pick this one, but there's a pile of, it's not even really a pile, it's probably got like 5 or 10 albums in it that I would say that about.
Yeah.
That it's just so solid, like from beginning to end. Like you said, there's not a bad song on there. I think like 6 or 7 of the 11 songs were singles.
Right.
So I mean, it's like, that to me is like, wow.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just like, I don't say that about that many albums, but that one to this day, and it holds up.
Yeah.
I can pop that on now and still listen to it and go, wow, okay, this is still really good. You know?
I mean, I can't say like, yes, that is it, number one, because I would have to sit and think about other albums, but it's definitely up there. It's definitely top 5. I think when you can say that, you won't want to skip a single song, then it's definitely in the running. Right. So anyway, I think I was doing rap and I was doing country because that was what was good at the time.
Right.
The pop stuff was crap.
Right.
And I did do grunge for a while. You know, we all wore the Doc Martens and the flannels wrapped around our waist, right? Nice. And the 2 big jeans. Yeah. I mean, that was it. Right. And you and I were at that age. It's that impressionable age. Well, what are our friends listening to? What do we like? You know, what's the dress look like? And, you know, so then I get older and I think I was out of music for a long time.
See, I've never had that experience.
I don't really remember like my 20s. But I will fast forward to meeting my husband 15 years ago, yesterday.
Nice. Happy anniversary.
Thank you. And so a little, you know, side note here. So when I met my husband has been in a very specific scene for a long time, building vintage scooters and riding, and he has all these friends, and it was a lifestyle that I immediately was drawn to. I like the lifestyle, I like the dress, I like the scene and the music. Okay. And so this was music I'd never heard before or very vaguely heard. This was music I was not very comfortable with, but was immediately drawn to it. And so, and I'm going to be terrible at naming names and genres and stuff, and my friends will kill me if they hear this. But it's a lot of ska and reggae, old Trojan reggae.
Like real ska.
Like real ska, not Gwen Stefani crap.
No doubt, yeah.
No doubt.
I mean,
no.
I'm not a fan of Gwen Stefani's solo stuff that much, but I definitely like No Doubt.
But that to me is not ska. Like she says she grew up a ska girl. It is third wave, yeah.
Which is what I prefer, but
it's okay in its own right. But the scooter scene is really about, you know, ska and reggae and Northern Soul. And Northern Soul is like British Motown, you know, Frankie Valli and Edwin Starr and a lot of my friends are DJs and they collect records and singles, and you're looking for these because they're old songs. And so that is something now as an adult I enjoy. We get together with our friends. That's the music that plays. We go ride scooters with a bunch of other people. That's the music that plays. We'll play it at home, just in the background. So I can say that's a couple of genres that I really, really, truly enjoy. And it's different. And I like introducing people to it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've heard of some of those names, but not
the way I was introduced to it. Right. So the Specials, everybody knows the Specials.
Yeah.
You know, A Message to You, Rudy.
Oh, yeah.
But there are so many other great songs. And I don't even know a tenth of what my friends know. I just know what I like.
Right.
Yeah.
As a quick little insert, have you ever heard of the punk band Propagandhi?
Maybe in passing, but I couldn't
they
tell
have
you.
a song called Ska Sucks. And in the end of it, which is kind of ironic because it's a ska song.
Sure.
Right? And they're singing Ska Sucks to a ska riff. But then in the end of it, they kind of cover, but they make fun of that message for Rudy. Yeah. It's pretty funny.
Okay.
You should check it out.
Okay, I'll have to look it up. So that's a lot of what goes on in our house nowadays. And then I like to think, so my husband's huge music. I'm movie. He's music.
Right.
He listens to the measures. He listens to the beat. He listens to the bass line.
Right.
Either it speaks to me or it doesn't.
Right.
And so he goes, how can you not like this? Listen to that. And I was like, I don't care.
Well, it's like me and Bethany are like night and day when it comes to music. Like every once in a while, there'll be a song that we both like. And I think it's generally because I'm not usually, I like just about every genre of music there is. She's a little more picky, I think, but when she really likes a song, she really likes a song. You know, she's like you. She grew up with the, you know, New Kids on the Block, Boys to Men, kind of that pop stuff.
Oh, Boys to Men.
But yeah, she not a punk fan at all. If I ever put on any punk, she's like, that's horrible. You know, my favorite band is a band called 15. She can't stand them. She's horrible. She thinks it's horrible. You know, which I think is great, right? I mean, it's cool. It means that we're different in that way. Yeah. You know, but but yeah, for sure. So where was I going to go? You said something a minute ago. I was going to go somewhere. I forgot what it was. How about this? Most recently, what's a band or an artist that you've gotten into in the sense that you get so excited about? Like you hear a couple songs and then you go and you start listening to all their stuff and you're like, this is great, this is fantastic, and you just go all in. Can you think of anything that has done that? It's been a long time.
Oh my gosh. So we recently got Spotify. We're very, very behind on that, but we were recently
I still don't have it.
Convinced to get it. Yeah. Oh, you should get it.
Everybody keeps telling me that. My older two kids keep telling me to get it. I tried. My brother-in-law was over here. He was trying to hook me up to his account so I wouldn't have to pay for it. Yeah. And it wouldn't even work on my phone. He's like, I don't understand. I've never seen this before. I said, dude, I'm just not supposed to have it. I'm old school. I buy my CDs, I put them on my iTunes, and I transfer them to my phone, and that's just
what
the
we've
way I do
always done
it.
too. But so on Spotify, it's great because you get a lot of suggestions, and then you can go back and listen to, past albums of people really easily. So I got introduced to a band called Pamplemousse.
What does that mean?
I think it means grapefruit.
It does.
In French.
Okay, because we drink those LaCroix. LaCroix is the right way to say it.
LaCroix.
Well, no, there's an X on there.
I know, it's French.
So we have those, and there's a pamplemousse on the thing, and we're like, what is that, right? And Bethany looked it up, and I think it's grapefruit.
Yeah,
okay.
Pamplemousse.
Yeah.
And so they do covers. And mashups. And I can't even tell you, they just had a new release like a couple weeks ago, and I listened to it and I really like it. I can't name a single song right now. I'm terrible with names.
Do they do all covers or?
No, they do some original stuff too, but I really do like their mashups. Like I do believe it's them that did, nope, just kidding. It's not them. Gosh. See, this is where I need to have my Spotify out, and I need to go. I'm terrible at names. Yeah. I'm terrible at names. But there was a mashup that I was listening to that was, I want to say it was Gilligan's Island and Stairway to Heaven.
Nice.
I mean,
See, that's something I've got to hear.
exactly. Yeah. And so I kind of go down that road. I'm like, I like the mashups. I like the covers. I like hearing different people's interpretations of things.
Right.
So I'm enjoying Pamplemousse. Not my favorite. Not like I wake up every morning and go, oh my gosh, I have to hear more.
Right.
I'd say in the last 10 to 15 years, I've gotten into a couple bands. So backing up a little bit, we lived in Boise, Idaho, and we just moved here a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And
I got friends up there.
There's a local music store downtown, Record Exchange.
Okay.
And we used to go in there all the time and just browse. It's huge. It has everything. We know the people that work there. It's
cool.
great. Very cool vibe.
Yeah, I'd spend hours in a place like that.
Yeah. They have records and CDs and, everything. But the greatest thing for me was the listening stations. So they had like 4 or 5 listening stations.
Yeah, I remember
They'd
those
have
at
them
other
loaded
places.
with new music or coming out with this or that. And I would just sit for an hour with the headphones on and play the things and think, okay, this is what I like. Do I like this? Do I like that? So I found a couple of, over the last 10 years, great bands. One I shared with you earlier, Girl In A Coma.
Oh, yeah, I'm digging that.
Girl In A Coma is fantastic,
Yeah,
right?
that girl's voice is phenomenal.
She's amazing. So Nina Diaz is her name, and it's a 3-piece girl Latin punk band.
Yeah, I watched some of the videos.
Yeah.
Too.
You should watch the NPR Tiny Desk concert.
Oh, it's a whole concert?
They do the Tiny Desk. Have you ever seen... What?
I know. I know.
Okay.
I knew as I said that you're going to be...
YouTube, NPR, Tiny Desk.
Tiny Desk.
Yeah, and it's where they have musicians come in and they're in this really small space, and they play acoustically or whatever.
Who thinks of an idea like that? Let's cram a band in the
NPR.
smallest space we can, and we'll have them play a show for us,
Yeah.
Wow.
So I started following them when I heard their second album was on the listening station. So then I went back and I had to get their first album. And then they've done 4. And then unfortunately they broke up.
Right.
And
She does solo stuff now, right?
Nina Diaz went and did her solo thing. And the other 2 girls went and joined another band. So Nina Diaz solo. I've seen her solo. I've seen Girl In A Coma 3 times.
Oh, you've seen them live?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
I talked to him. I have my picture taken with them.
Oh, cool.
That's really cool. And then to see them through those albums develop and change the sound, but it doesn't get worse. And it's not so far off from where they started. It got a little more mellow because their first album was pretty heavy. And then they did a cover album. So they have their third album is all covers.
Yeah.
And they covered the Beatles, and they covered Joy Division, and they cover Selena. They sing in Spanish.
I think I heard that one.
It's so great.
I just went onto YouTube and typed it in, and there was like a YouTube playlist for that band. I just let it play when I was working. So,
Almost
and
lost
that
the
was
dog.
one of the ones that was on there.
Yeah.
Was that Selena song.
Yeah, they do a Selena song, couple Selena songs. So I really enjoyed them. One that I also found on the listening station was Fitz And The Tantrums.
Did you already tell me about them?
I might have.
I might have wrote that down, but I still haven't
might
listened to
have.
it, so.
And that was the first album. Fantastic. Great album. Very soulful, very poppy, very he has an organ. He plays the organ in there. No guitar. It's
Really?
horns, and he's got a beautiful singer with him. And then they started getting popular, and the albums got more and more poppy
Oh, okay.
and crap. And I got so disappointed. The last album that they came out with, I went out and I bought it. I put it in my CD player in my car, and I'm driving down the road and I'm like, nope, that one sucks. Skip. Nope, that one sucks. Skip. And I will say I was in a bad mood, but by the 5th song, I ejected the CD, I rolled down my window,
Threw it out?
threw it out.
Oh, wow.
I was so bummed.
Wow.
And I'd seen them 3 times in concert.
Yeah.
I'd met him. I actually got to play pool with him one night.
Wow.
After
And then he
a
ruined
concert.
all your dreams
He
after
ruined
that.
my dreams.
Wow. What a jerk.
Crushed me.
That's horrible.
Crushed me.
Yeah, that always sucks when you're... I understand from like the band perspective, like they're like, we don't want to be pigeonholed into this one kind of... we want to expand our music horizon. But to the fans, you're going, no, we loved what you did on this album. Just keep doing the same style, but making new songs in that style, right? But to the band, they're like, we play this we tour and we play it over and over and over, and we're so sick of this stuff. And, you know, so it's different from each side of it. But like, I have a lot of bands like that too, where you're like, what in the world?
But don't you think some of those bands play to the masses?
Yes.
Like, you have to consider Sugar Ray. Remember Mark McGrath and Sugar Ray?
Oh, yeah.
And they came out with Fly.
Yes.
And that played on the radio all the time.
Right.
And it was fantastic. And everybody was in love with it. And he was cute. And so all the girls, la la. And they go out and you buy the album. That was the only song on that album that sounded like that.
Right, because the rest of it was pretty hard, right?
Hard.
Yeah, like
pretty
RPM was on that album. And yeah, it was real. But then they took the hint. In the next albums, they made more like Fly.
Yep.
Right? Yeah.
Playing to the masses. So are you really being true to your sound then?
Right.
Or are you trying to make money?
Well, see, to me, that is the exact definition of a sellout.
Yes.
Like, people will call a sellout anytime a band starts making money. I'm like, that's not a sellout. Like on the last one, we were talking about Green Day. Yeah. And how when Dookie came out, they blew up, right? And now they're all. But I'm like, they're still punk rock. They're still having getting in fights, and they're still getting thrown out of clubs, and they're still, you know, they're not only that, but they're still writing the same kind of music. Like, you listen to Dookie, it's no different than you had on 39 Smooth or Kerplunk or anything that came out before that. And then even after Dookie, they continued. I mean, they got different around later on. But it wasn't the fame that did that. It wasn't the money. So now they're sitting here and they're making all this money, still playing the same kind of music that is awesome, good quality punk rock. And then all the underground people are like, oh, Green Day sucks. They sold out. No, they didn't sell out. If like you said, if they change their style for the purpose of making more money, to me, that's a sellout.
Yes.
But even then, I don't think that makes you a horrible person. I'm like, if you're trying to make a living, then make a living. I mean, I don't think
it makes you a horrible person, but I do think that most musicians would agree that the money is nice, but they do it because it's their art. Right. It's their form of expression.
Correct. Yeah.
And so now what you're saying to me is you're changing your expression because that expression costs more.
Right. That's true. That's a
you
good
get
point.
paid more for that art than this art. And and that's where I think you're a sellout.
Right.
And so I would call Sugar Ray a sellout. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I don't think Green Day is. No, I think Green Day has evolved.
Oh, totally.
And also become popular.
Right.
Speaking of Green Day, have you ever listened to the Foxboro Hottubs?
It's funny you asked that because on the last one I did, that brought up.
Okay.
Because I've never heard that. Right. But I love Pinhead Gunpowder. Have you heard of Pinhead Gunpowder? So that's another side band that came out around the same time as Green Day. Okay. It still stayed pretty underground, and they have two vocalists. Billy Joe's one of them. Okay. So it's kind of cool because it's a mix, but it's still kind of punky and stuff. But no, Foxboro. So the last guest was telling me about that band and how it's all the same members, right?
Well, so here's how I stumbled upon it. I was at my local library. Did you know you can check out CDs for free from your library?
I did know that. Yeah. I know the guy that does all the cataloging and processing of those CDs.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that would be amazing. Yeah. What a fantastic job.
It is. It's a great job.
So here I am in my
big money too.
Right. I mean, I don't doubt it for a second.
That's why I'm wearing a tuxedo right now because
I left my sequin ball gown at home. I'm so sorry. So I'm in my local library in Boise. I'm flipping through the CDs, and I don't know the names of some of these things, but I go with what's eye catching, right? Right. And so I see this CD, and I go, oh, Foxboro Hottubs, and this was before I think I even had a smartphone that had capabilities to like look up Pandora or I don't know. Maybe I wasn't even thinking about it. And I just look at it. I look at the album. I go, okay, this is good. I take it home. I push play. I love it.
Nice.
I love it.
And you had no idea it was a Green Day side project?
No, I didn't know until about 3 weeks ago.
Really?
Yes.
And how long ago was it you moved from Boise?
Well, I moved 2 years ago. I'd say this was probably 7 or 8 years ago, maybe. So
is Billy Joe the vocalist?
Yes.
You couldn't tell a similarity, huh?
No.
Or does his voice is way different?
I mean, well, I think it's because it's matched with a different type of music. So you don't quite, I don't quite know. So I show my husband, he goes, this is great. I burn the CD. I return the CD back to the library.
Oh, wow. You know, this is being recorded.
Yes, I know. But you're disguising my identity, right?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And So, or it's on my iTunes or something, right? So I've got it on there, and so we listened to it, and I swear maybe about 3 weeks ago, my husband and I are having a conversation with one of our friends, and we're like, oh yeah, have you listened to the Foxboro Hottubs? And he was like, oh no, but blah, blah, blah. And my husband, I think it was my husband that said, it sounds a lot like Green Day. And my friend goes, it is Green Day.
How
like
funny.
That's Billy Joe.
That's awesome.
I don't think either one of us figured it out.
How funny is that?
Yeah. So that's the same thing as like, I think, again, Billy Joe and Green Day is not a sellout because he's going and making different music with different people and a different sound.
Right.
And he's doing that for the art, not the money.
Right.
And so, yeah,
for sure. And
so listen to them.
Yeah, I'm going to check it out too because I'm curious if the vocally, because there's a lot of bands that I like. There's a guy named Mark Solomon who has been a singer in many. He's in a band called The Crucified in the 80s. It was like a thrash punk band, and then they started Stave Saker, which is more of like it fits in with the grungy kind of sound, you know. But he's like a very good. I think he's a very good vocalist. And then they started this side project called Neon Horse, which was kind of recent, like in the last. I don't know. I'm bad with time frames. Could have been 10 years ago for all I know. But you would have never known in a million years it was him. Okay. Because the way he sings in it is so different. Like, I mean, I knew because I'm a fan of the other two bands, and it was promoted that way. Right. Oh, it's Mark Solomon's new band, and the guitar player for Neon Horse was in another band I really like. So it was like this collaboration. I was like, okay, really cool. And I loved it. But I was like, man, to like, if you were to play 2 songs back to back from Stave Saker and then one from Neon Horse, you would never say in a million years, oh, that sounds like the same singer. Okay. Like there's no way. Right. You know, so maybe that's the case. Maybe Billy Joe sounds way different.
No, now that you know it's Billy Joe, it sounds like him. Okay. And so this is the thing is you can't come back to me later and go, you're so stupid. I can't believe you didn't know that was him. Yeah. Because you are listening to it for the first time with the knowledge. Yeah. Yeah. And I've been listening to it without the knowledge. Right. Right. And so, yeah. So to you, you're going to be like, oh, well, it's obvious. Right. It's so obvious.
I wouldn't call you stupid.
Don't call me stupid.
I don't call anybody stupid.
Okay.
Even stupid people, I don't call them stupid.
I do, just not to their face.
Right, exactly. So, oh, man.
Oh, gosh.
One of the, have you heard of Alec Benjamin?
No.
Okay, so he's probably the most recent back to what we were talking about, like, it only happens like every 4 or 5 years for me where I find a band or an artist or whatever where I'm like, oh wow, this is just, you know, because you talked about speaking to you, right, which I want to get back to in a minute. But I go back like every 5 years I'll get one. 21 Pilots. I'm sure you've heard of 21 Pilots.
Yes.
So
in fact, I think I know someone who dated someone who was in that band.
Oh really? There's only 2 guys in it.
Oh, well, then that would narrow it down.
Let me rephrase. Their first album, there was 4 guys.
Okay.
By the time the second one came around, there was only 2, and there's been 2 ever since.
Yeah, no, it must have been when it was 4. Yeah. Anyway, okay. Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I first heard Guns for Hands, which was late to the game, right? Like on their 3rd album, I think. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is just like blew my mind. I was like, this is awesome. I'm like, what is it? What do you even call this? Is it hip hop? Is it electronic? Is it, you know, there's like all these different, is it pop? Like all these different sounds going on. So I just, and from that I went and bought everything they had. And now I get, they're one of the few bands that when they put something new out, I'm like just waiting for it. It's like, I can't wait. It's 2 more months, I got my pre-order in 2 more months. Okay. I'm going, in a couple weeks, we're going to visit my cousin near Portland and we're going to go see them live. It'll be the 3rd time we've seen them.
Awesome.
The best show I've ever seen. I've seen so many shows in my life, and this.
We got to talk about that too. Best shows.
Oh yeah.
Is that one of your questions?
No, but these are just small guidelines.
You should always have what's the best show you've ever seen.
I should put it on there. I will do that. But so anyway, so then 21 Pilots, that happened to me. Loved it, and then my daughter and her husband turned me on to this kid, Alec Benjamin. I call him a kid because he's way younger than me. Okay. But it's just the one guy. Okay. He kind of has a guitar and he sings. He's got a really high voice. He almost sounds female, kind of. But the songwriting is just, I mean, it's just that kind of those lyrics and the way there's a lot of songs that make me feel nostalgic. They hit you. Well, you may have heard, he had a song called I Built a Friend. That that was used. I think it was used on either America's Got Talent or something. It was used for some dance routine that some young kid, I believe. I might be getting all this wrong, but it was used on one of those shows, and that's the song everybody knows because it was used on that show. Oh. But you should look it up. Okay. Look it up when you're not. Look it up when you're not in a situation where you can't cry.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for the disclaimer.
Yeah, like you're driving down the freeway, you might not want to listen to it. You know, blurred vision's not easy to drive through. So
no. Shouldn't do it.
But anyway, that was So then I just got all this stuff, and he's kind of. I mean, he's signed and he has albums come out, but not a lot of people have heard of him yet. Which always bums me out because
you're gonna have to write it down for me because I'll forget it.
We'll compare notes when we're done because I want to look up some of the stuff you're talking about too that I've already forgotten about.
So as far as new right now, and I'll tell you, I'm so gonna go back on my words, although I could lie because you didn't know what I thought before. Lizzo is the real big rapper girl. Yes. Yeah, wears no clothes. Right. I think she does wear clothes,
but she might as well not be wearing.
Okay, so Lizzo comes out with her first hit. I can't even think of what the name of it is. And
she's the one that was with Cardi B in the WAP song.
Oh, I have no idea.
Was that Lizzo? Maybe not.
Because I can't stand Cardi B.
No, that was Megan Thee Stallion.
Okay, I don't like that girl either.
I don't either. Yeah.
But Lizzo comes on and she talks about body positivity and empowerment and being a big girl doesn't suck and I'm sorry, Lizzo. And I thought...
yeah, I'm sure she'll listen to this
because Lizzo's going to listen to this. I thought, there's no way that this girl is really speaking how she feels.
Right.
Because I'm a big girl. I know what it's like to be uncomfortable.
Right.
I look at her and I'm like, you have to be uncomfortable sometimes. And are you just putting on a face, right? So I was like, nah. Then a podcast I listened to was talking about how they saw her in concert or something, and they're just gushing, and they're like, I was crying, and I'm like, come on,
yeah,
you whatever.
It was so moving.
I'm like, really? She's like, I got the juice or something. Come on, that was gonna make you cry.
Yeah.
So I only know like the first like two big hit songs that she's had, the juice and the other one. I get them all. I know. This is so bad that I can't remember it. So then one day I look her up she's on the Tiny Desk concert, NPR Tiny Desk concert. And she's talking about, this is a tiny desk. My thumbs don't even fit under this desk. She's like, whew, I'm sweating, but she's got the voice. Like, not only can she rap, but she can belt, right? Yes. She can sing. So I go, all right, I'm going to listen to a couple more of her things. So I look her up on Spotify and I just push play and I start listening to a couple of her stuff. She sings in a way and raps in a way that you can hear her lyrics. And I became such a fan.
Really?
She's such a champion for herself. So again, terrible with names, but she sings this song where she talks about, like, I'm my own best catch. I don't need a man. Like, I'm my own soulmate.
Right.
I think it's called soulmate.
Right.
I'm my own soulmate. I do what I want, when I want, I look how I want, this and that.
Right.
And so it's more than just empowerment. She really is, I think, speaking her truth and speaking what's in her mind. So I actually really admire her now. Yeah. And so, so I take back all the things I thought about Lizzo before. I really do admire her, and I would like to listen more to what she has.
Do you believe her when she makes that kind of statement? Like, let me rephrase. Do you really think that she is really happy without a man and she really is truly happy that way? Or do you think that she's had bitterness and she's had bad luck with men and she sees them all as dogs or whatever? So she's like, I'm just happy by myself.
I think that when I first heard her stuff, I thought there's no way she can really be happy. And now I think either she's a really good liar or her tone is genuine enough.
Or maybe she's convinced herself.
She might she's
happy.
But is that a bad thing?
No, I wouldn't say it's a bad thing. I just wonder, like, how if you can truly be happy single, I say more power to you. Great, go for it. But if it's really only because you just haven't met the right guy, or all the guys because I know men like in my own life who have actually said the words to me. Oh, dude, I'm just trying to find a good girl. I just want to settle down with a good girl. And I say, well, dude, who you been dating? Where you been going? I mean, I'm in the bar every night. I'm going to the same. I'm like, okay, so you're looking for, and he describes to me the kind of girl he wants.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do you really think, I mean, you might find her in a bar. I'm not saying it's beyond the realm of possibility.
Right.
But most of the women in bars that are single are just looking for a hookup. They're looking for someone to drink and have sex with. And that's kind of what they're doing. If you're looking to settle down with somebody, probably the bars is not your best bet, Well,
I think that when you say I'm perfectly satisfied being single, I think there's a difference between saying that and saying I'm never going to date again.
Right.
I'm perfectly happy being single right now, but I'm not closing myself off to the opportunity.
Yeah, that's good.
And so I think that's what her message is.
Right.
And I think what's important too, especially in that song, which I really do need to go back and listen to again, is she's not saying it's okay for you to be single. It's okay for you to be with yourself. She's saying, I'm okay with me. I'm okay being single. I'm okay being my own soulmate.
Right.
So it's not the empowerment of you go do you, girl, like go for it.
Right.
She's just saying this is how I am right now.
Yeah. Well, because if every woman really held to that and they all just swore off men, we all die out pretty quick.
Oh, we'd be so much happier though.
We'd be so much happier up for the 60, 70 years until there was no more procreation and everybody
Who cares after that?
Yeah, see, I don't know if I buy it.
There's plenty of sperm banks out there.
Yeah, but if everybody dies off,
that would take a while. I'll be dead by then, so it doesn't really matter to me.
You don't care about future generations. All I care about is myself. That's what I heard you say.
Anyway. Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much.
But I don't necessarily. I mean, I understand like the feminist movement. I understand why it started. I get all that. I understand the way that the world used to be structured and all that. I totally understand. But I don't buy that most women involved in the feminist movement are happy with their lives. I don't. And the reason why is because most of them are very angry all the time.
I would agree.
Right? They're just like this and their brow is furrowed and they hate everybody. They're out there to, and a lot of them are the way that you just said. Like that you said they shouldn't be. It's where they're saying, oh, all men are horrible, wretched, worthless people, and any woman who's with a man should be shot and blah, blah, blah. It's like...
That's somebody who's been scorned.
Other people. Right. Maybe. But even then, like, I have, my whole life, I've always had a hard time putting a blanket over a whole category of people. I mean, here's a good example. When I was in high school, I knew a guy who hated Mexicans, which I thought was stupid. I'm like, what is wrong with you? Like, why?
Right.
And here was his excuse. He says, well, Ryan, I assume you've never been jumped by a bunch of them. And I said, well, you're right. I haven't been.
Right.
But even if I was, I would hate those 5 guys that jumped me. I wouldn't hate the entire Mexican culture.
Right.
Because of what 5 guys did.
Right.
Right. Because that's idiotic. Right. So in the same vein, I think if in feminism, if they're like, well, all men suck because the 20 I've dated in my life were all pigs. Okay, that's 20 men in how many men are in the world? I'd be like, really? And then I would ask the question, where are you meeting these men?
Right.
Are you hanging out in places where scumbag men tend to congregate? Or I mean, like, what are you doing, Are
we getting into the political section already?
It sure seems like that's what happened before too. So
here's how this goes for feminists, in my view.
Which we need to classify what we mean by feminism, because even there's many feminists that would be at odds with each other, but they would both characterize themselves as feminist.
Sure. So I would consider myself to be not a feminist, but an equalist. Okay. I think a lot of people, men and women in the feminist movement are seeking equal ground. Okay. Then there is that subsect of women who are self-proclaimed feminists because they hate men.
Right.
So they are pro-woman. I think generally I think of feminism as pro-woman.
Well, I'm pro-woman too.
Well, everybody should be. Especially since you're married to one and raising two.
Exactly.
Everybody should be. Just as women should be pro-man. Because that's how we get along.
Right.
But that's me in my brain with this equalist mentality.
Right.
So feminists that are pro-woman all the time, meaning anti-men, they're going to be the angry ones. I do think that is a subsect of feminists who have been scorned or burned by coworkers, employers, boyfriends, fathers, brothers, schoolmates, right? And so they've grown this hard, crusty shell that is made up of men's, you know, the way men have done them wrong.
Right.
And so then they're seeing the inequality in the world, and they're saying, aha, I'm going to use that inequality as a launch pad for my feelings, for my emotions towards men. When really, I think that's not what most feminists are trying to do. I think what they're trying to do is to seek equal ground. So I think we should all be on a level playing field.
Do you see that as like straight across the board in all things? Or are you referring to something specific, more like, I don't know.
Well, there is still a wage gap. There is a gender gap with wages.
See, that's something I think that I know I do anyway. I need to look more into that, because if what you mean by that is that there's an exact, let's say you and I applied at the library on the same day, and let's say we had the same credentials, and let's say we have the exact same everything as far as our schooling, as far as our experience and everything.
Okay.
And let's say they hire both of us for the exact same position, right?
Right.
And we both start, and then we compare our paychecks. On our first paycheck, we both worked there the same amount of time, and I'm making $3 an hour more than you. I would stand right there with you and say that's wrong.
Right.
That is totally wrong.
It is completely wrong.
Is that what's happening? Is the question I have. Is that what the scenario that I just painted, is that really what's happening?
So I think it's a couple of things. So for one, you and I are lucky enough to be working for a sanctioned city/state job where the pay is very structured. So regardless, we cannot negotiate our wage. So there's a couple things. One, men are taught to negotiate more. Women are taught to take what's given to them.
You say negotiate, meaning like when you're offered the job, you say that's not enough, I want more.
Exactly.
To where the woman's more likely to say, okay, I'll take it.
Okay, I'll take it.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Because as we are grown up in our stereotypical gender roles, women are expected to take what's given to them, to say thank you very much. And men are taught to go for what you really want, meaning you need to speak up and ask for more money. Which is why it's so hard to teach women now to go for what you want and ask for more money, because they're seen as being bossy and so there's that. Right off the start. If you and I went and applied for the same job in a private sector where we could negotiate, you would have an instinct to negotiate. I would have an instinct to take what's offered.
Right.
Okay, so there's that right away.
Right.
Then there's also the ingrained stereotype that men are just going to be better performers at the job. So a part of the wage gap is also men hiring other men are going to give them more money to start than a man hiring a woman.
Right.
I hate to say it, but it's true.
Well, see, I understand completely what you're saying. I guess I would have to see the evidence behind that.
It's been proven.
I think that was true like in the 60s and the 70s, maybe.
It has narrowed.
Okay.
So the gender gap has closed, but it is still there. I think I read an article maybe about 4 or 5 years ago that were saying typically, this is total generalization, women are making 78 cents to every man's dollar. So
Yeah, I've heard that too.
it's getting close.
I've heard that again, but I have to see that
You have to see the proof.
right? Like, and to respond to something you said a minute ago, like I tend to, like, with anything, I try to think to myself, what am I seeing in my own life, right? Even when dealing with statistics and that kind of stuff, which isn't always the best way to go about things, because it could be that where I'm living, I could be living in a bubble where all the statistics being taken aren't actually happening. That's possible too. But when you were just talking a minute ago about how men tend to be more aggressive and going for their higher pay or whatever it may be, trying to get that extra promotion, trying to push towards that position that they want that's higher up, and women are more meek and mild. Do you find that yourself? Like if you take a survey of all the men and the women that you have in your own life, do you see it that way? Do you see like that a lot of the women you know tend to be not very strong women, kind of just in the background, kind of like, oh, whatever you want, that's fine, and the men are like, oh yeah. Because in my life, I kind of see the opposite now. It seems like men are becoming more, or less, I should say, they're becoming less that way. And I mean, even look at a lot of the households that I know, where the women tend to be the ones in control of the household. And I'm not necessarily saying that's wrong.
Right.
I'm just saying that seems to be different than things used to be. And I think it goes back to the pushback, right? It's like for so many years, it was the man mistreating his role, because I do think he has a role. We'll probably disagree on that, but I do think he has a role in leadership in a family. But that being said, I think that men in the past have definitely misused that role in a bad way, and for their wife and their children, and now it's backfiring. Now women are like, no, that's not the way it is. And you even look in like a lot of sitcoms now in the last 10 years, you watch sitcoms. What do you see? You see the mom is a strong career woman. She's taking care of the family. Who's the dad? He's some bumbling buffoon, can't even make macaroni and cheese. He's tripping down the stairs. The kids are laughing at him, and he falls down. He breaks his leg. He's laying there hurt. The kid walks by, grabs the wallet out of his pocket. Thanks, Dad. And then the laugh track starts. Yeah. And it's like, it's funny, right? Dads have become a joke. It's like, this is what a dad is, guys. He's some moron who can't even tie his own shoes.
So I'll play devil's advocate at this point and say that I think a lot of the reason why sitcoms are written that way is to purposely show the female empowerment.
No, I agree with you. That's what I mean. It's the backlash to it being the opposite.
So the pendulum swung too far in the other. Yeah, I totally agree. I actually agree.
Right, and that's where I would agree with you as far as we're talking about equality and that kind of. I don't think we'd agree on equality in everything, but in stuff like that, I definitely think that at one point it was male dominated to a fault. And now, because of the backlash, and rightly so, some of that backlash, I would agree, it's like you said, it's swung far the other way.
Yep. Where the dads are useless and worthless.
Right. Which is true in some cases, right? But not always. I mean, I think that men that take their role as a husband and a dad seriously, they do it well. They do. They make sacrifices for their wife and their children.
Okay, but their role as a husband and a dad is different than their role as a CEO in the company, or even we won't even go up to CEO. We'll go up to manager. So the feminism comes in when I think more in the workplace now than at home, because there is still quite a huge percentage. Well, no, I'm just take that back. There are still some situations in some big companies where the top roles are still predominantly male. Okay. You look at the Supreme Court justices. How many females do we have?
2,
3, right? Okay. You look at top CEOs of companies. Okay. It's something like less than 20% are run by women. So when you're thinking about the workplace, men get more of the managerial roles. They get moved up the chain. And it's still even to this day, 50 years later, 70 years later, it's not because the women are not strong, but because they are perceived differently when they do speak up. So you asked me a little while ago if the women in my life are meek and mild. No way. I'm surrounded by extremely strong women.
Right. So as am I.
Right. But when those women go into their workplace, they have to second guess everything they say. How is this going to be perceived? And I think that is a role that men usually do not find themselves in. Men don't have to think about what's coming out of their mouth. They say it. And if they say it, it sounds authoritative. And if women say it, they sound demanding and bossy and, cranky and nagging and whatever. So, and you can see it. Even me, I'm a very outspoken female. I can see it in people's faces that what I said rubbed them wrong.
That's what I was going to ask you, if you feel like, because you said other people that you know deal with that, but do you feel that way too? Like when you go into work, do you feel that way?
I don't feel that way in my current job.
Okay.
I feel so lucky and blessed to have the job that I have and to get to work with the people that I do work with.
Right. Well, thank you.
Just like a man. Gosh. But I'm very lucky because I worked for myself for 15 years. So I didn't answer to anybody but myself, and I worked in I was a hairstylist, so I worked in a predominantly female field,
which is obviously sexist. Men aren't getting those jobs.
No, they're not getting those jobs. No.
So that leads me back to something you said a minute ago that I wanted to ask. So I would agree with you on like looking at statistics and things like you said, like how many Supreme Court justices are female, or how many heads of CEOs of companies are female. And yeah, you're right. You could probably look at that stats on that and say, yeah, it's predominantly male. But for me, it's a big jump to go from that to that's sexist or that's unequal. I mean, it's unequal in saying there's less and there's more.
Yes.
But when we go and we say, and that's because the same amount of men and women are applying for those jobs, yet the men that are already in those positions are saying, nope, woman, see you later. I don't want a woman. I'm going to hire this guy, even though he's way less qualified than this woman.
But they are.
But see, that's what I'm going to have to see evidence of.
Right.
Because I don't know about that.
I think it's subtle enough that there may never be concrete evidence enough to convince you or to give. But
has there been enough to convince you? And I would ask you, what is that concrete evidence?
I mean, it's mostly the testimony from other women. Which you have to admit is subjective.
Only because you never know what the real circumstance is, right? Like someone can go to a job interview and they come back and they say, oh, it went so well. I did so good. And I answered all the right questions, and then they find out they didn't get the job and they hired some guy. And now they go on a rant and a rage about, oh, it's because he's a man and blah, 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 blah. When that kind of assumes that you know what's going on in the minds of all the people that did the hiring.
Right.
You're assuming on them that they picked him over her because he's a male and she's a female, which you can't know that.
You can't know that. No, I agree with you. You can't know that. And I don't have concrete evidence that I can give you other than testimonials from women and testimonials from men that are in the hiring position.
Okay. See, there's probably more credit there, I think.
Men that have been interviewed and said, I subconsciously lean towards the man. And it's all the way we were raised and the way we've been conditioned for generations.
Yeah, I'm with you there for sure.
So, how do we break out of it? The way we break out of it is by letting people making people aware that you are subconsciously making this decision because of the way you were raised, because of the way your parents' household was.
Yeah.
So yes, there are testimonials from men that said, oh, for the 20 years that I was the hiring manager at this company, looking back now at my stats, I hired 70% men and 30% women. Why did I do that? Not necessarily because the men were more qualified, but because I felt more connected to the man, or I felt like the man was going to be easier to deal with, less emotional. Then there's the, I wasn't going to be afraid that a man would get pregnant and leave the position, or have to take maternity leave, which that's complete
I've heard that.
BS.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
I'm going to choose this man because this woman is 30 and she doesn't have any kids. And so I'm a man, so I have a sneaking suspicion that she's going to get knocked up really soon, and then she's going to leave. Come on.
Yeah.
First of all,
that's a wrong presupposition.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You can't even imagine what my life is like. Don't try to insert that on me.
I agree with you. Totally.
And now you're going to deny me the job, the opportunity of the job. And you're going to deny yourself the opportunity to have a great employee because you think maybe she might want to have a family. Oh, that's what, see, I get worked up on that.
No, yeah, I get it.
And that men have admitted that.
Yes, that I know. That I know. So, but to ask, so do you think that if there was more women in those positions of hiring, I'm assuming based on what I'm about to say, I'm assuming that statistically it would show that there's more men in those positions of hiring people than there are women. So based on that, which I don't know if is necessarily true, but if that's true, do you think that if it was reversed and there was more women in those places than men, that the same thing would be happening, that there would be more women getting hired for those positions because the woman would relate more to the other woman in the same way that the man relates to the other man?
I think more women would be hired, but not more women than men.
Okay.
I think more women would be hired than are currently being hired, but it would still be...
You don't think they'd have that same kind of bias in a sense as men do?
No, I don't think so. Because I think... I just had this. It was brilliant, really. I mean, it was just.
Don't you hate that?
Beyond
and then
brilliant.
It goes out and you can't ever find it again.
With something that you just said. So, women hiring women. I think women are going to be more in tune to the qualifications of the person. And who knows? I could be totally wrong, right?
I think you are. But...
Well, thank you.
But I could be totally wrong too. So.
Well, I think you are.
I could be totally wrong about me thinking that you're totally wrong. So who knows, right?
I don't think that women look at other women when they hire them and say, I relate to this woman, therefore I'm going to hire her over the man. I do think that it would end up being slightly more equal as far as your qualifications go. How
about this? Do you think that like a woman, let's say it's a woman who cares a lot about her appearance and she tends to be like a lot of the people in the office think she's pretty and that kind of thing. And as she's hiring and she's got two women there before her, or even a woman and a man, and the woman is very pretty, she's younger than the woman hiring, do you think she might be prone to say, well, I'm not going to hire that woman because then the men are going to be looking at her now instead of me, and I'm going to be old news, right? So there's always that kind of bias, like one way or another.
Oh, there's always going to be a bias because I don't care what anybody says. Women are very judgmental.
Right.
Extremely.
Yes.
More so than men.
Yes.
Because I think women are more careful about their looks.
Right. Well, especially when it comes to physical attributes, I would say that women are definitely more concerned with that than men are.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
which is good.
Right.
Right. That's a good thing.
Right.
Yes. I'm glad my wife is much prettier than I am. That makes me happy.
I think everybody is.
Yes.
Yes. So women definitely can be more biased. So that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's going to be. It's definitely not perfect.
Right.
It doesn't matter who's in the hiring role. It's not going to be equal until you have completely genderless interviews. Right? You read off of a person's resume, no gender. You get to interview them.
Like over the phone, but with one of those vocoders to make their voice change, and you can't tell what gender they are.
The black, the backlit,
like the witness protection thing. And they're like,
what he said was, or, I'm sorry, what they said was, right. if we could have, that's the only way to really measure this,
Right.
is if we could have completely genderless interviews.
Right.
And go based off of answers, responses,
Yeah.
and experience.
I think that's
then we
awesome.
would truly see.
I think that would be a good experiment to do.
It would be a fabulous
It's like the show The Voice,
Exactly.
right? Because for so long we were just talking about at work today about Milli Vanilli. Or Milli Vanilli, how these overweight, bad-looking men were writing these fantastic songs. We're like, no one's going to want to listen to us, so let's hire these young, good-looking guys to lip sing and pretend like they're doing it.
Right.
#1 selling album.
They won Grammys.
All kinds of stuff on there, right? And it's like, and then everybody finds out, oh, wait a minute, it's these heavy set, ugly guys back here. They're doing. Oh, we don't want their albums anymore. You know, it's like, it's so pathetic to where something like music, we should be like, no, I enjoy the music. I don't care what you look like. But that's not the way it is.
Right.
Either that, or it just so happens that every single person, man or woman, that has a good voice or is good at music just happens to be stunningly good looking also.
Exactly.
Really? Come on.
Right.
Seriously? That's why I appreciate a show like The Voice.
I love The Voice.
It's like, oh, I think you sound great. And that's all that matters.
And
I
they turn
like,
around and
whoa!
they're like, wow,
Yeah.
you're in your 50s.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Same with CNC Music Factory.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember CNC Music Factory? Gonna Make You Sweat. The video has this thin
woman,
beautiful black woman with these long braids, and the
like
real singer is a very heavy set woman.
Right.
Well, why couldn't they have her in the video?
Right.
Well, because she doesn't have the sex appeal.
She's not appealing. Yeah, exactly.
She's not appealing to the masses.
Right.
Right? So it's the same thing.
Yeah.
What are Rob and Fab doing now?
Well, one of them killed himself.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, it's bad. It's pretty bad.
Did he do it, or did he have someone do it for him?
Oh, wow.
That was really bad. I'm sorry.
Okay. So back to the idea that the gender roles, stereotypical gender roles, as many would say, right?
Okay.
And I think that's the terminology you just used a minute ago.
Yes.
Do you see, well, first let me describe what that means to me.
Okay.
So you got even you go back to the caveman days, you got the hunter-gatherer, generally the man, right? And you got the nurturer, child bearer, child raiser as the woman. Push that forward to modern day times, maybe not right now modern, but 50, 60 years ago. You have the man has the job. He goes out and he works 40 to 50 a week. He brings home the paycheck. The mom stays home. She raises the children. She cooks the meals. She cleans the house. Right, pretty stereotypical kind of thing. When you look at that structure, do you say that's wrong, or do you ever see a circumstance where that could be good?
It's not for me to judge. That's for each. Do I think it's wrong for my life?
Just in general, like so are you saying it's you're saying that it can be good for some women, but not all women? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying it's up to the family as a whole. Where I think it becomes a problem is when men or even other women expect women to follow that role. It's not for me to say, your wife needs to stay home and raise your children, and you need to go make enough money for everybody.
Right.
And it's also not your place to tell me that I need to pop out babies, because that's not happening. So that's nobody's business but yours.
Right.
And I think what it comes down to is this. So I told you 15 years yesterday, I met my husband, and before I would agree to meet him in person, I said, do you want to have kids? Yes or no? Right. Now that's very forward for someone you haven't even gone out on a first date with.
But that is a big life thing, right? Like wanting kids or not wanting kids, that's a make or break for a relationship.
Absolutely.
So I mean, I think it's smart of you to ask.
I'm not even going to entertain meeting this guy if he says, I want to have children.
Correct.
Good luck with that. Nice to see you, or nice to talk with you. I hope you meet a great girl.
Right.
I did not want that for myself. I never did. So when I was 21, I went to beauty school, and I went to beauty school with girls. I mean, bless their hearts, they were really making something of themselves. Here they're in this trade school so that they can have a skill to make money and provide for their family. Some of the girls had gotten pregnant in high school, some married early, whatever their circumstances were, right?
Right.
But you want to sit here, and I mean you as in them, would go, when are you going to have kids? And I'd say, oh, I'm not having kids. And they're like, record scratch,
Right. Yeah, see.
What do you mean? And I'm like, I mean, I'm not having kids.
Right.
They're like, well, that's just terrible.
Oh, that's nice to say to somebody.
Why would you say that to someone?
Right.
What do you mean that's just terrible?
Right.
No, that's the way I chose. And I could be really petty and say back to them, oh, really? Look how it's worked out for you.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And they're like, well, what are you going to do when you get old? And, who's going to take care of you when you get old? And I would say, your kids.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I'm sorry. Did you procreate so you could have someone take care of you when you're old?
Right.
That's
no. Well, that's hardly happening these days anyway.
Right.
It's like home, put mom in a home.
Yep.
I can't do it.
See you later, mom.
Yeah. But I mean, I would agree that I think if somebody doesn't want kids, they shouldn't have them.
No, because there's so many people out there that should not be parents.
Right. And you see them and you can tell that they hate their kids.
Right.
And it's just, it's not
and
the
hate
kids'
their
fault.
Life.
Yeah. And it's like the kids are being mistreated because the parents see them as some kind of thing that ruined their life.
Right.
And it's like, well, then you shouldn't have had kids. But I mean, I think once you have the kids, I think you need to straighten up. Don't treat them like they're some bane of your existence.
You made that choice.
Correct.
So you made your bed, so now you have to lie in it.
Exactly.
Right.
And lie in it nicely.
Right.
To where you're treating your kid properly, But
if I had a friend who came to me and said, I've met this nice man and we're going to get married and we both want to have kids and I've decided I'm giving up my career to stay home and birth babies and raise my children. I wouldn't look at her and go, well, you're stupid.
Right. You think that's good for her.
I would say, great for you.
Right.
Is this what you want?
Yeah.
So that stereotypical gender role, if you want to be Donna Reed, go be Donna Reed. Right?
What if I want to be Donna Reed?
You could be Donna Reed too. They make pumps in your size.
They do. I've seen them.
I can get you in contact with a drag queen company that will make the heels in your size.
Let me think about it. And I'll get back to you.
Okay.
I'll get back to you on that one.
So vice versa. If your wife made a lot of money and didn't want to give up her job and you wanted to stay home with the kids, go whatever. Right.
Right.
Whatever. We'll get into this probably in the spiritual section, but I'm really, not only am I an equalist, but I subscribe to the religion of happiness.
Right.
Does this make you happy?
I was just going to ask you that if that's kind of I wasn't going to go the spiritual route yet, but just in general, like, is happiness the goal in everything?
Yes.
Okay, so
sorry, that was really fast.
No, that was a fast answer, but I mean, I guess more what I mean, and maybe your answer will still be the same. But like when we talk about roles, like, is it because I think you were just saying, using the phrase, if that's what works for her, or if that's what makes her happy, or if that's what she wants to do, right? But if you kind of look at the male role, if we're still looking at the stereotypical roles, is the man's the head of the household, all the responsibility falls on him to make sure his family is fed, make sure that all that, make sure his wife is loved, make sure like all these different things, right? Which are biblical principles of husbandry. That word sounds funny. I feel like that word's been used in a wrong context, so maybe I'll strike that from the record. But anyway, let's say there's a guy in that position and he says, you know what? This doesn't make me happy. I don't like this, right? Kind of thing. I don't want this. So I'm going to quit my job and I don't care if you guys eat or not. Would you say in that situation that was the right thing for that man to do? Or would you say no, whether he likes his job or not? Yeah, maybe look for a new job, but don't quit your job until you find a new job, because you have a responsibility to make sure that your family is taken care of.
Yeah, the latter.
Okay.
Because he's still going to seek his happiness, but in that temporary moment, responsibility trumps happiness. Okay? Responsibility for the short term. Look for another job that makes you feel better about your life and your decisions, then quit the crappy job and you will hopefully seek your happiness. Or come home and have that discussion with your wife that says, this is not making me happy. I don't want to be the breadwinner. I don't want to be the provider. I don't want to be the 401k earner. And give your wife a chance to say, okay, sounds great, babe. Hang out until I can secure that.
Right.
And then we can reverse roles.
Right.
Now, if he says, well, I don't want your role either, well then, okay, there's the door.
Right. But if let's say there's no children involved. Let's say there's just a man and a wife that are married.
Sure.
And what in that scenario, let's say, what would their roles each be?
Well,
Would they both have to work, you think? Or let's say the wife makes a lot of money. She makes enough to pay the mortgage. She makes enough to put food on the table. They go on vacation a lot. They have a lot of money. Plenty of money just on her income.
Plenty of money just on her income.
And he says, I don't need to work. So he just wants to hang out around the house, play Xbox.
Is he going to clean the house?
You know, I don't know. That's what I'm asking you. Like, what would you think would be his responsibility at that point?
His responsibility is now the house.
Okay.
So this is perfect because this is my husband and I don't have children. Okay. We do both work.
Right.
But if I made more money and we could live off of my income and my husband said, I don't like my job, I want to quit, I would say, that's great. I completely support you. But you now have to take care of the house.
Okay.
So there is a house and there's a job.
Right.
And when the man and the woman both have jobs, then they both have to do the house.
You have to share equal responsibility. Like
Yes.
One does the dishes, one does the vacuuming,
Yes.
or whatever, right?
Yes.
But so, and you're okay as long as, like, if one works and the other doesn't, then the one that doesn't work, the house should be their responsibility.
Yes.
And you don't care which gender it is.
No.
Like, you have no problem with, like, if you were staying home, you have no problem taking care of the house while your husband worked full time.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what kind of genitalia you have. One has to make money and one has to take care of the house and or kids.
Right.
It doesn't matter to me. So my parents are divorced my whole life and remarried to different people at a very young age. So I've had step parents. So I have two very different models for households. My mom made most of the money. She worked very hard for a long time with a big company and retired well. She had an hour commute to work and an hour home on the bus. She expected us to clean the house, and she cleaned the house on the weekends, and we cleaned the house. We had our responsibilities, and we had to help out with dinner and all that kind of stuff. Okay, then my dad's house. My dad made less money than my stepmom, but they were very equal in things. My stepmom, I don't know about to this day, but I never saw her cook a thing.
Oh, wow.
Nothing. She could not cook, which was fine because my dad's a fabulous cook.
Right.
My dad cooked every single meal every day.
Yeah. He probably enjoyed it too.
He loved it. He loves to cook. He loves to feed people. That's his love language, is feeding people. Okay.
Well, that's the kind of guy I want to hang out with.
Right. And he never did the dishes. So that's their roles. He came home early every day because he worked early. He got dinner started. He cooked every meal. She did the dishes. Very equal in that household.
Right.
Even though my stepmom made more money, they took care of the kids equally. They took care of the household chores equally.
Right.
My mom's house where I lived, my mom made most of the money. She had us children to help her a lot with the household. And we still, had, I don't know, everybody had their responsibilities.
Right.
So it doesn't really matter if you're the husband or the wife, as long as you guys agree. But you cannot get two people get married and then have them go, well, I don't want to work. Well, I don't want to work either.
Right.
Do you do stand-up comedy at all? Do you like stand-up?
Yes.
So Nate Bargatze? I can't say his name right. Anyway, one of the best stand-up comedians I've heard in the last few years. Absolutely love him. And he just says this one quick little bit about he's the dreamer and his wife is the realist. Right? Because, and he goes, and it has to work that way because you can't have two dreamers because you'll run out of money in an hour and you'll be homeless.
Right.
And you can't have two realists because then you'll never have any fun. Okay. So one has to be a dreamer and one has to be a realist.
Right.
You have to complement each other.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's the word.
No, and I agree. And do you think though that, when we look at like the idea of the woman being the nurturer and the dad being the
breadwinner,
okay, right? Do you think there's anything naturally there, or do you think it's all cultural? Like, in other words, do you think that the woman gender is typically more nurturing than the male gender, and that the male gender is more driven to provide than the female gender, or do you think it's all equal, and the reason why it's one's more than the other seems to be is all cultural?
I think it's 50-50.
Okay.
I think women do tend to have more of a nurturing instinct and personality. I'm also a big believer in astrology. So I do believe that certain signs are more nurturing than others. And you take on that personality of your astrological sign. And then I do feel like it is culture. So how you were raised, what you saw, what was your mom doing? What was your dad doing? What was your family dynamic like? What was told to you? You have to grow up and be this. You have to do this and go to college or whatever, or you have to have kids. Right. So it's both. Right. It's both instinct.
Yeah, I think that's definitely
culture.
True that there's that going on. But I mean, I think that's the case no matter how you look at it. Like if you look at modern today and you say, well, what are young girls being told mostly? You know, when it comes to that, they're being told, you know, you need to be successful. You need to go to college. You need to, to where 50 years ago, they weren't being told that. They're being told, you need to stay home and make babies. Cook. You need to, raise children. So the whole thing. So no matter how you look at it, that's going to be taking place, right? So I guess the question is more, which one's correct? Not so much what's culture or what's being handed down from generation to generation, because it's always going to be something, right? You look at other countries or other vastly different cultures than ours, where you can go to places in Africa where, by the time a boy's like 9 years old, he's already going out there with a flint knife and killing a boar. Right. And carrying it home on his shoulders. And kids in some of those cultures get married when they're 11 or 12 years old. They build their own house. They provide for So it just depends on the culture itself. But for me, the question is more like, is there a proper... No. Is there a correct? You just think... So if there isn't... then what's the word I'm looking for? How do you determine if it's right or not? Is it based solely on the happiness of the person that's involved?
I think I think it's determined by the happiness of you and your partner. Okay. The success of your household and the communication that you have with your partner. So first of all, you said which one is correct. Right. Meaning, are you looking for an answer? Well, because if any, right. No. Right. None of it is correct and all of it is correct. How can you say that? Because what you're saying when you say which way is correct is you're saying this way, the way this person lives is right and the way that person lives is wrong. And that's not for me to judge. Well, I think... I understand what you're saying in that situation, but I think there are situations where you would say it is right for you to judge. Oh, really? Well, let's use an extreme example. Okay. Ryan's known for his extreme examples. Yes. Okay. Let's say there's a man who is a pedophile. Okay. Okay, and he gets his happiness from molesting and raping little children. Okay. Now, would you judge and say, that's not okay, even though he would say, what are you talking about? This is what makes me happy. Okay. I'm happy. This is the only thing that makes me happy. This is the fulfillment of my life, right?
it's ridiculous, but believe it or not, I mean, there's men like that would be dead serious making that statement. It's disgusting, but it's true. They're mentally ill, obviously, but...
Okay, so yes, in that situation, you do judge.
Right, because that's an extreme example.
Yes.
But then it's like the closer you get to non-extremism, the more those lines get blurred, which I find interesting, because then it becomes a matter of the severity of the crime as it becomes less about happiness.
And also your own personal interpretation of what's happening.
How so?
So, like you say, the severity of the crime. Well, if you're going to lessen the intensity of the crime, now the gray area, the blurred line, so to speak, is the interpretation of whether or not that's really a crime to you.
Correct.
Right?
Right.
So your interpretation of this guy's a pedophile and pedophilia is wrong. I think a majority of us would agree.
Right.
Yes, that's wrong.
Right, but why? Right, that's what you're getting at, right? What determines that to begin with? Like if you visited a culture, I'm sure this doesn't exist, but let's say there's some village out in the middle of nowhere, right?
Where it's acceptable.
Where it's just normal. This is just what we do. We raise young children and we molest them, right? It's horrible. I'm painting a horrible picture right now. But I don't think anybody would look at that and say, well, that's just their culture. I guess that's just for them. That's okay. I guess that's right for them. Not for us over here, but for them, that's right. I don't think there's anybody that would really agree with, except maybe the people who live in that city.
I would not get on my soapbox to try to convert that culture. I would simply remove myself.
Oh, you would?
Yes, I would.
You wouldn't see it as any kind of like duty of you to protect those children who are being raped and molested.
If we're talking about, okay, so in this extreme example, say there is a small, not even a country, right? A portion of a country in Asia.
A trailer park.
Okay, sure. It's a trailer park.
Off the grid.
There's a village or a community or even even as big as a county, right? And I go on my travels. I'm traveling the world and seeing things, and I encounter this county, and I meet these people, and they seem like nice people until I find out that they like to molest their children.
Right.
I would leave. Okay, I'm not going to leave and call the UN and make it my duty to stop that, because every single person that lives in that county thinks that that's totally okay.
Right. Even the kids, maybe.
Even the kids, because that's how they were raised.
Correct.
So 2 things. Do not come into my county and try to pull that crap.
Right.
I will beat you.
Right.
I will beat you severely.
Right.
Do not come over to my side and say, I'm now going to do the thing that I'm comfortable doing. I'm going to do it in your yard.
Right.
Okay. And then the other thing is, I'm also not going to stop you because that's how you were raised. I'm going to remove myself from this situation and say, I'm not comfortable with this.
That's fascinating.
Okay, but let's correlate it to a very real thing happening right now.
Okay.
And that is the overturn of Roe v. Wade.
Oh, here we go.
Okay.
All right.
So this county believes that abortion is a sin.
Okay.
They believe you are murdering babies. They will not do it. That's fine. But I don't believe that. So don't come into my yard and tell me that I can't get an abortion because I live over here. I live in the county where it's okay. So it's the same. Now, mind you, pedophilia is just wrong on so many levels.
Right. Well, says who, though?
Society, right?
Right.
Society as a whole. Our society.
But if another society said it wasn't wrong,
that's right.
Then we'd be okay with that.
No, they're okay with that.
Right.
I'm not okay with that.
You wouldn't be okay with it, and you wouldn't be not okay with it enough to actually try to protect the kids.
My Siri is talking to me.
Oh, gotcha. Not enough to protect the kids.
That's, God, this sounds so mean, but that's their kids.
Right.
Okay. Don't touch my kid.
Right.
The same way, if your church or your belief or your family, your culture and your upbringing says that abortion is a sin, then don't get an abortion.
Right.
Don't tell me I can't get one.
Yeah.
You're pushing your belief on me.
Well, okay. Let me paint a different picture for you.
Okay.
Let's say we're in our society.
Here we are.
Okay. And I decide that I want to kill my 11-year-old son.
Okay.
Do you have the right to stop me? Or does that fall under the, Cindie, don't you tell me what I can do with my own kid? Because if I want to kill my 11-year-old son, you don't kill your own 11-year-old son, Cindie, but I'm going to kill mine. There's nothing you can do about it. Or do you think you have a right to try to stop me?
I have a moral obligation to stop you, but that is my personal choice.
What do you mean? Your personal choice?
My moral. That's my morals.
Right, but do you have a right to impose your moral on me?
No.
You don't?
No.
You think I should be allowed to kill my kid?
No, I don't. You asked me if I have the right to stop you.
Okay, so that's what I mean. So you don't think I should do it.
Correct.
But if I'm going to do it, you're not going to try to stop me.
Okay. My morals, I will stop you. But that doesn't mean that I'm any more right than you are.
I think you should stop me, by the way. I totally
I-
agree with that. If I'm trying to kill my kid, I do think you should stop me.
I will
Right.
try to stop you.
Right.
But see, that doesn't mean that I'm any more right than you are, and it doesn't mean that I'm any more wrong than you are.
Right.
Okay? So does someone have the right to do it? No. But someone's personal moral obligation, what grows inside of them, their core value, they can still act how they want. So when you talk about a core value of someone who values all life, born or not.
Right. Human life.
Human life.
We have to distinguish.
Okay, all human life.
Then they'll jump in and say, well, do you eat a hamburger? What, you're pro-life, but you eat a hamburger?
What about chickens?
Yeah.
What about eggs? They're unborn
Yeah,
chickens. Okay.
exactly.
Oh my goodness, eggs are delicious. Okay. So if you have someone whose core value believes that all human life, unborn or not, is sacred and deserves 100% protection, does that mean that they are more right?
Well, see, it depends. This is where it depends. I personally don't think, and this is I guess it's gonna get into spirituality.
I guess we're getting your name.
But I don't want to leave the abortion topic because that's a good one.
Yeah.
Especially because of everything's going on right now. But as far as belief goes, I personally don't think belief dictates truth. I don't think that just because I believe something to be true, that makes it true.
Yes.
Or that I believe something to be false, that makes it false. I believe in an absolute truth, not in everything. So let me phrase it this way. I believe that there is absolute truth, but I also believe that there is perception.
Yeah.
Right? What some would call a relative truth. And I often use the example of pizza.
Okay.
Why not? I love pizza. So we could have a pizza here in front of us. I wish we did. We could have a pizza here in front of us, and let's say it had mushrooms and olives on it. Okay.
Ugh, gross.
Good. I'm glad you said that.
Gross.
My two favorite toppings.
Ugh.
And I can say these are the best two toppings, the best two pizza toppings in the world. You say those are the worst two pizza toppings in the world. You know what? In that situation, you're right, and I'm right.
Because that's our opinion.
It's opinion.
It's our
perception and opinion. Correct. Right.
Yeah.
And we could both be right. I could love the taste of mushrooms and olives. It could make you want to throw up.
Yeah.
Right? And we're both right. Yeah. But if I said, this is a pizza, and you said, no, it's not, it's a hippopotamus. Okay? The absolute truth in that scenario is that it is a pizza. There's nothing you can believe about it. You can throw your thoughts and your opinions on all you want to. It's still going to stay a pizza.
Because that's fact.
That's a fact. Exactly.
Exactly. Exactly.
So that's why I'm glad you agree with that,
Okay.
because I talk to a lot of people that don't. They say, no, if I mean, that's your truth. If your truth is that pizza's a hippopotamus, it is actually a hippopotamus.
Oh, that's
It's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous.
But that's where the relativism leads you to.
Right.
If you believe in relative truth and all that kind of stuff, right? So then when we go back to the issue of anything like that, if the argument is you guys don't think that abortion's okay because your religion believes that all life is sacred. I say, I don't care what my religion believes. I don't even care what I believe. All I care about is all life sacred? Or is it not? Is there a point when life becomes less sacred or more sacred? Like everybody's got a different thing. They say, oh, as soon as it passes through the birth canal, then it becomes human, or then it becomes a life. It becomes a person at that point. Some people say, no, it's when the heartbeat starts. I'm one of those weirdos that says as soon as sperm hits egg and it's conceived, that's a child.
And that life is sacred.
And that life is sacred. In my opinion, that's the way I think, because in my opinion, that's something that only God can do.
Okay.
God designed it that way. God designed men to produce sperm, women to produce an egg. It fits together, and there you go, right?
Okay.
There it is. And you say, well, if it's just so it's just a clump of cells. They say, of course, other people say, well, we're all clumps of cells, really.
Yeah.
Just bigger clumps of cells. So yes, I believe that that's when life happens.
So then, do you believe abortion is murder?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do. I do leave room for certain situations. I think that if it is life of the mother or life of the child, I think that's where I believe in her choice. That's where I say that's up to the mom if she wants, because I hear stories of where women's on the table and they say, if you deliver this baby, there's a good chance you could die. And she makes the decision, say, I still want to deliver the baby. I completely respect that decision.
Okay.
And sometimes she lives, she's got a beautiful baby, she lives the rest of her life. Sometimes she dies. That's a choice she makes. So I leave exception for that. I don't think it's murder if you're being told it's you or the kid.
Right.
There's nothing else we can do. But I also think that is the smallest fraction of a percentage of abortions that take place.
That's true.
And that's why when you ever hear these debates, they go back and forth. They usually try to say that, oh, well, what about rape and incest? What about rape and incest? And I was listening to, I don't know if you know who Ben Shapiro is. He was speaking at a college campus one time, and probably one of the most famous clips everybody knows him from is this girl got up and she was talking about that. And she says, well, what about rape and incest? And he goes, well, before I answer that, let me ask you a question. Do you believe that all other abortions that aren't rape and incest are wrong? She goes, well, no, I think a woman should be able to get an abortion whenever she wants to. He says, well, then why are you bringing it up? Why are you bringing up rape and incest? It has nothing to do with your argument. You're trying to use a small percentage to prove a point that doesn't make any sense because you're trying to say abortion's right no matter what the circumstances are.
Okay.
So why even say that?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So
an abortion in the case of rape and incest is still murder. It doesn't mean that fetus is less of a human. Because it was a choice.
I am against abortion even in that case.
Okay.
I hold that unpopular view as well because I don't think the sins of the father should be passed down upon the kid.
Okay.
I don't think it's the baby's fault that the mom was raped. I think rape is atrocious, horrible. I think the dad should be killed.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about rapists. I think he should be tortured and killed. Okay, so let's get that out of the way.
Castrated at the very least.
Yeah, slowly.
Slowly.
Right? Slowly and painfully.
Dull knife.
I hate rapists. I hate all that.
Okay.
Get rid of all of them. String them up, firing line, shoot them all in a pit.
Okay.
However, the child that's conceived through that rape is completely innocent to all of that. They have nothing to do with any of that.
Sins of the father passed to the child.
I don't think the kid should be killed strictly because their father committed a horrendous act upon the mother.
So I think what you touched on is where a lot of us really, really get to the nitty gritty of where a life begins.
Right.
And that's where each person sees it completely differently.
Right.
Okay. You are at a cellular level, sperm and egg, bam, life.
Right.
People are at the heartbeat. Okay. Then people are at the, whatever stage is past that. And then some people are at the birth part. Okay. So
some people even go farther than that. some of the people on the far extreme, you say, well, what about like if your kid's like 2 months old? They'll say, yeah, you should still be able to kill it. I mean, that's on the far. There's very few people who feel that way, but that's on the far
that
side.
makes me sick right there.
Right.
Okay, so I guess what that says to me is I'm in that last few months to the birth part of it.
Okay.
Is where that clump of cells start to form a human life. Okay. So that's kind of the age-old question, and that's really the chicken or the egg, right? So that's where it's being debated, and that's where spirituality comes in. That's where politics come in, and that's where your own beliefs come in.
Sure.
Because each person, you could interview 100 people, and you're going to get 100 different answers of where they think life begins.
But I'm interested in the why, right? Like, so if someone says to me, like, well, let's use you. You just said it. You said, first couple months before to birth, would you, well, I guess you didn't say this, so let me ask you, do you think that's wrong? Let's say 8 months pregnant. Would you say that an abortion at 8 months is wrong?
No, but I think there are other options because statistically at 8 months, and I know I'm going to contradict myself here. I know
I'm sure I already have a
statistically at 8 months, a baby can sustain itself.
Okay.
You can deliver a baby at 8 months.
Sure.
At that point, it's adoption.
Okay.
Okay. So you don't want the kid. That's fine. Because babies are born at 8 months, 7 months, 6 months, even 5 months and live.
Right.
So that's why I say that. I think it's kind of a gray area, but the 7 to 9 month area, because if you go in and perform an abortion at that point, not that I think that it's wrong, because I still think it's your choice, but it isn't unnecessary because the child can live on its own.
Well, they can't.
They
still need an adult to help them. You couldn't just give birth to a baby at 9 months pregnant and leave it somewhere. It can't survive on its own, right? It can't feed itself. It can't clothe itself. It's going to die, right? If you give birth and you leave the baby somewhere, it's going to die.
But if you take a 6-week-old fetus out of the human,
right? It's going
to die immediately.
There's no chance.
There's no chance.
Correct.
Right. So when there's the option that there's a chance that with an adult, not the mother, not the father, just an adult taking care of this child for survival, then I think you have options at that point.
Well, let me push back a little bit on that. So if you, so it's 6 weeks old in the womb, you remove it, it's going to die immediately, right? But what happens if you leave it there?
Inside the womb? Well, I don't know if you know how pregnancy works. But
it's going, most likely, unless there's some problem, medical problem, it's going to
grow into a baby.
As a baby.
And be born.
Right. So by removing it at 6 weeks, you've prevented that from happening.
Yes.
Okay. But you don't see that as the same as removing it when it's 8 months old.
I don't see that as the same thing.
Either way, you're preventing a life, is I guess what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Even if you don't believe it is a life at 6 weeks old, you're still preventing it from becoming the life that it will naturally become by staying where it was placed for a specific reason around all the things that are going to make it grow.
Yeah.
By, in my belief, the God created that for a purpose, right? So by us going in and removing it, we're putting an end to that. We're stopping that from happening.
Right.
Okay.
But if you remove a 6-week-old fetus and you remove an 8-week-old from
8-month-old, you mean?
8. What did I say?
You said 6 week and 8 week. Okay. You meant 8 months, right?
8 month.
Okay.
6 week, 8 month. You remove them from their wombs. Which one is going
I got you.
to fight, right?
Yeah, one is going to survive even if the mom dies.
Yeah.
The 8-month-old baby, provided there's some, like you said, some adult that's going to feed them and take care of them, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Of course. Right. Yeah. Sure, I get that.
When it really starts to get to me is like this whole thing with overturning Roe v. Wade and wanting to make abortion illegal is when you're taking my choice away from me. And that's what's making people angry.
From that side, yes.
From that side.
Sure.
That is what's making people angry.
Because they and this is where I'm gonna get in trouble. That's because they assume that that's a right they have. Where is that right coming from is my question. Where should we have the right to kill our babies if we don't want them?
That's my belief system.
Right, but
My belief system tells me that I'm right.
sure.
Just like your belief system
Right.
tells you that you're right and I'm wrong. So I subscribe to a religion that doesn't view life as a life until it comes out of the birthing canal.
Right.
Okay. When that clump of cells takes its first breath outside of the womb, that's when my religion considers that to be a human.
Right. But
So,
why?
because that's what my religion has told me. That's what I've grown up with. That's what my religion decided 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 years ago. And that's also what my people who subscribe to my religion have interpreted
Right.
in my religion.
Sure.
So in my world, my culture, my life, my house, and my church, that's anything before that is not a real life and therefore is not murder. So it is not wrong to vacate that pregnancy.
Right.
So when you go around, not you, when you
Oh, I might.
when you go around and make it a federal law that says, I don't care what you think is right, I'm telling you what you're doing is murder and illegal, you're now telling me your religion is null and void, it is inconsequential, and you must abide by my religion. And that's where I have a problem.
Right.
That is, for me, where the whole problem lies.
I believe you, but I also think it's more than that. Because I think that I think it's because something like abortion has been so feminized, feminismized, or whatever that word is. I'm just making up words.
Feminized.
To the point that it's really not about the science behind it. It's not about any of that anymore. It's about a woman's right to choose, right? Because the last I checked, and this again, this is going to get me thrown in the fire too. That's what I'm going to call this episode: getting thrown in the fire.
Thrown in the fire.
Yeah. It takes a man and a woman to create a baby, right? One can't do it without the other. And I'm not going to get into the whole transgender stuff. It takes a sperm and an egg in order to make a baby.
That is how babies are made.
That is how babies are made.
Yes.
So, but if the dad, let's say my wife believed in abortion.
Okay.
And we got pregnant. She got pregnant from me. And I said, I don't want you to kill the baby. I don't want, and she says, no, my religion says that as long as I do it before this certain time, I can do it. And then I say, well, that to my religion, I'm using your wording.
Right.
To my religion, it says that no, it's a life. That's my child from the moment of sperm to egg. That's my kid.
You're murdering my kid.
You're murdering my kid. Now the state or whoever is going to look at that and go, no, you don't have any rights as the dad. You have no rights at all. Why? Because it's in her body. This is something that will, and I know there's a lot of people that are going to be listening to this and already thinking to themselves, how does he even have the right to, he's a man. He has no right to even be talking about this. How dare him? Blah, 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 blah.
I'd like to see him get pregnant and see how that goes.
So stupid and so irrelevant to what I'm saying. So it's something that I've never quite understood. First of all, I don't understand the argument, but let me say what I was going to say first. I don't understand why just because something is being housed, like the baby's being housed in the woman and not the man,
that it's her choice and not his.
Somehow that makes it more her choice, her responsibility, But then what's the number one argument that's always made? And I've raised this before, but people say what? My body, my choice.
Yeah.
Right? Don't tell me what I can do with my body, right? And it usually has the word man in there somewhere. No man's going to tell me what I can do with my body, right?
Yeah.
And I've brought this up multiple times because I think it's a straw man argument. And I brought this up on different formats. I still haven't really got an answer. A lot of times people just completely ignore that I made the comment at all, like on Facebook or whatever. But I think it's a valid point. And it's this. I know lots of pro-life people. Lots of pro-life. I'm a Christian. I'm a churchgoer. Most of the people I communicate with in my personal life are pro-life, okay? I don't know a single person that's pro-life that has any problem at all with what a woman does with her own body. Not one. And somebody pushes back and they say, well, and I had somebody say this to me. They said, well, if that was true, then they would be fine with abortion. I said, no, you're missing the point.
Yeah.
Pro-life people have a problem with what you're doing with the body that's inside your body. That's our argument. So you're building this straw man saying, no, you guys have a problem with what we're doing with our body. No, I don't. If you want to go jump off a cliff and kill yourself, I'm going to tell you, please don't do that. I value your life. I don't want you to kill yourself, but I also support your right to do so. If you want to end your own life, I support your right to do so.
Sure.
I do not support your right to kill someone else's life simply because they're growing inside you.
Okay.
Is that 3 things?
Yes, this is 3 things. I'm holding up 3, but I've already forgotten one of them. So my method doesn't work. Okay. 1, I do believe it is your right to have a say if you are the father.
Okay. Most don't.
I do. I
give you kudos for that.
I agree with you. If you are in a relationship and that woman comes to you and says, I'm pregnant, it's yours, and I'm getting an abortion, you have every right to speak up. Okay. So tied to that, what I think, instead of my body, my choice. Ooh, I remember. Haha. Okay, so we're still on 3.
It's the opposite of a brain fart.
Instead, brain vacuum, a brain burp. Something. I've created something. It should be my belief, my choice.
Belief, my choice. You have to explain that to me. I don't know what you mean by that.
Well, go back to my religion.
Okay.
My religion says this isn't murder.
Okay.
So you can't tell me that it is. You can't make a law that says it is. That is what pisses me off the most. You have made a law preventing me from connecting with my belief. You've put a wall.
But you wouldn't always have a problem with that.
No, well, it depends on the subject.
Because, like, if I said my religion, and here we go, extreme example number 2. If I said my belief system, my religion says that it's totally okay for me to walk up and shoot you in the face. And I'm in court. Now I'm in court, right? Because I killed you.
Right.
And I'm before the jury. And I say, Your Honor, my belief is that it was totally okay for me to kill Cindie. And then he just bangs the gavel down. He says, you know what, Ryan, you're right.
You're right.
You're off. See you later.
No,
that wouldn't. You'd be like, no, there has to be laws to stop Ryan from killing Cindie. Why?
Because now we're back to what determines a human life.
And that's the point.
I'm a walking, talking, breathing human being.
But that's why I always want to go back to that, because that is the issue.
Yeah.
What you're saying just now is not the issue. It doesn't matter. You can't say about laws, because laws don't matter, because there are plenty of laws that you would agree with that would prevent one person from killing another person. The problem is you don't believe that baby is a person.
Yes.
Right. That's the issue.
Okay, but the law being made right now is saying that I am being forced to
not kill a human.
Not kill what you think is a human.
Correct. Because that's the issue.
Right.
Is it or is it not? That is the only issue.
I agree.
Right.
I agree.
Right.
But when you bring law into it, okay, so first of all, church and state, like, hello. But
we can talk about that one. You know what that means, right?
I'm gonna need a cocktail.
Let me set that straight real quick. Church and state was designed so that the government would not interfere in the matters of the church.
Right.
Not the other way around.
I know, but it needs to be the other way around. It should be reciprocal. Oh, there's a kitty cat. Oh, I get distracted by animals. I'm sorry.
That's my favorite one. Best cat I've ever had.
Name?
Watson.
Yeah. Oh, hello. Okay. All right. Let's get back to this dirty stuff.
Yes.
So this law put down is saying The Supreme Court is saying, Cindie, I understand that you don't believe that a fetus is a human life, but we're telling you there's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
I don't agree with that.
So turn it. Let's say the Supreme Court says, Cindie, we know that you believe that it's okay to shoot Ryan in the face, but we're saying that no, there's a law that's going to prevent you from doing that. It's the exact same thing. The only difference is your belief says, no, you can't kill me because I'm 44 years old.
Right.
That's the difference.
You just outed my age.
Oh, I mean,
you never do that to a female.
I'm 20 years older than you.
No, because you and I and the Supreme Court are all on the same side that a 44-year-old woman is a human being. Okay. When we get down to fetuses, we're not on the same side.
Right, but what if somebody wasn't? Like, what if they weren't? That's the point I'm making. Like, that's why I say I don't care about beliefs. I don't care about personal religion, all that. It doesn't make any difference to me. Because you can take it any direction. I can find some psychopath who believes that he is the Pope.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? But we can't function as if he is, because he's not. The reality is he's not. So what we need to do in this situation is we need to figure out scientifically, I think scientifically is one of the only ways we can figure this out.
When is a life a life?
When is a life a life?
Okay.
And I think if you even look at the latest secular scientific studies, not religious, not in any sense of the word, they will say conception is when life begins. The only people that don't say that are people that are fighting for this right. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason they're fighting for that right is because it's become a feminist issue. It's become an issue of, you're not going to tell me what I can do. You're taking, like you just said a few minutes ago, you're taking my choice away. You're taking my rights away.
Yes, but okay, so here...
And I think that's a brainwashing. I think that falls under the category of what we were just talking about, and that you're being raised. Our culture is bringing up people to believe that from early on.
All right, I'm going to flip it into a different category, but I still have those two things on my two fingers.
Don't forget them.
I'm not going to forget them. But so what this law is doing, what the Supreme Court is doing, is saying yes or no, black or white, left or right. Right. There is you now can't do this
by state.
By state.
Right. Every state gets to decide now what their law is going to be.
But someone somewhere wrote this law saying you can't do this. Okay. But on the other side, there was no law before saying you have to do this. Not just, so that's where the word choice comes in. If you, Ryan and Bethany and your church and your friends and your children believe that human life starts at conception and that by getting an abortion you are committing murder, then you don't have to do that.
But see, that's so difficult, because if you really believe that life starts at conception and that people that are getting abortions are literally murdering a child, it's hard just to say, well, that's just their belief.
But see, that's how I am with that county over there in Asia that is full of pedophiles.
I know. Okay. And that's hard for me to believe. I wonder if you were over there and you were witnessing that, like you're watching some man rape a 2-year-old. If you just be able to walk away and be like, well, I guess that's just their culture. I'm getting out of here.
I would walk away. I would walk away emotionally scarred for life and have to go through a lot of therapy. Right. But therapy would also teach me that I need to cultivate my life and my surroundings with the things that make me feel safe and secure and loving and accepting. And that means never going back to that village. Right. And that means trying to get that mental, of course, the vision of that 2-year-old is going to plague me for life.
Well, I think that's where we differ. Like, to me, it would become my life goal to get every kid out of there,
out of that village,
and then drop a bomb on all the adults and then get rid of that culture completely, because I see that as one of the most horrendous, evil things in the world. And there's certain things where I could just say, yeah, that's your belief. You don't like mushrooms on pizza. Okay. I'm fine with that. Go for it. You don't eat mushrooms, and I will.
Right.
That's easy, right? I couldn't just walk away and say, you know what? I'm not going to molest my children, but you go ahead. I mean, that's your thing. I'm going to leave you to your stuff, and I'm going to go over into my world where I'm not going to do that. There's no way I can do that.
But if you wrote a law saying that by state, every pizza had to have mushrooms on it,
I would think that was dumb.
I'd be pissed.
Well, I would think that's dumb.
But it's no different.
It is, because it's the consequence is different. Right? Like, I would be all for them making a law.
What if I was allergic to mushrooms?
Then you don't eat them. That's my point. That's what I'm saying. You can't.
But you've taken my favorite thing to eat, which is pizza, away from me.
I would be against it. I'm already saying I'd be against that law.
Right.
But I wouldn't be against a law in that other culture the make-believe culture we're talking about.
Yeah.
To say you cannot molest your children.
So now we're back to levels of severity.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. Well, exactly. And that's the whole point.
I know.
Is it life? Is it not a life? That's what makes it more severe than others.
I know.
If I believed as you do, that was nothing, that was no life at all, it was nothing, I would be totally fine with abortion.
Right.
That's
but
why I say.
You believe that's a human life.
Right. That's why I say that is the only issue that matters.
I agree.
Because everyone else is talking about all this other stuff, when in reality, it all comes down to that.
Okay.
Because it either is or it isn't. And if it is, it's murder. If it's not murder.
Which is why I would say flip the script. People on my side would have to flip the script to my belief. My belief, my choice, not my body, my choice.
Right.
My belief is that's not a human life, so it should be my choice to get an abortion or not. Now, the my body, my choice, I'm going to give 2 examples.
Okay.
And both of these are completely not voluntary. It's not the word. You'll see what I mean. I'll get to the word eventually. Okay. So one, Hobby Lobby. Hobby Lobby is a company that refuses to provide health insurance for its employees for birth control.
Okay. Birth control or abortion?
No, birth control.
Okay, I'm against that.
Okay. I am not.
No, I mean, I'm not against birth control. I'm against a company saying that they won't.
Okay, good. But that's their belief.
Right.
So that is more my body, my choice. That is more of a my body, my choice statement than I can't be allowed to get an abortion. You're telling me that if I come to work for you, you're not going to allow me to prevent unwanted pregnancy?
Well, that's not what they're saying. They're saying they're not going to pay for you.
They're not going to pay for it.
You can still pay for birth control out of your own pocket.
But what if it's too expensive?
Right. They're making it harder for you to do so.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. So that I think is where my body, my choice really fits a little better.
Right.
But it is also my choice to not work for that company.
Correct.
Well, I'm not going to work for that company.
So that's the other thing that's always said, right? You're taking away my reproductive rights. This is another term I hear all the time. To me, it's another straw man, because people on the pro-life side would say, no, we completely support your right to reproduce or not reproduce. The problem we have is after you have reproduced, what you're going to do then. I completely believe that no woman should ever, or man, should ever conceive a baby if they don't want to.
Right.
No man should ever be forced to be a dad. No woman should ever be forced to be a mom. But what they're saying is, oh, she's pregnant. The baby's already in there. Now
I get to decide.
Now you can't, if you're telling me I can't abort it, now you're forcing me to be a mom. No. You decided to be a mom the moment you took your pants off, assuming this was consensual.
Right.
And you had sex, whether it was unprotected or not protected. I mean, it's...
Okay, so that was my question. So here's my follow-up question. So when I was younger and not wanting to get pregnant, I was on birth control and I made my partners wear condoms.
Right.
So we're double protected.
Yep.
There's still a slight chance of pregnancy. So I completely understand that it is my choice to have premarital sex. It's my choice to have sex, period.
Correct.
Marital or not, teenager or not, or however old I am.
Right.
It is my choice.
Right.
And when you make that choice, you also make the choice to possibly become a parent.
Yes. That's the gamble.
I get it.
Right.
But telling an 18-year-old, you get in that girl's pants tonight, you're going to be a dad. And they're like, whatever, I'll use protection. She has protection. I have protection.
Right.
Birth control, condoms, you still get pregnant. I think there should still be an option available.
There is. You can give it up for adoption, or you can become a parent.
Or you can become a parent.
That's the option.
Right.
Because the only other option is kill the kid.
Kill the baby.
Right.
Murder the baby. If you, and this, I'm being so maybe hypocritical, but if you fool around, no protection, no condom, no birth control, pull out, use the rhythm method, whatever.
Right.
Come on. Don't be surprised then when your girlfriend calls you and says, guess what? I got knocked up.
And he's like, whose is it?
You knew that was happening. Like, don't be an idiot.
Right. No, I'm with you.
You make the smartest decisions that you can. And obviously, I do believe in my heart of hearts that teenagers are not emotionally mature enough to make the decision to have sex.
Right.
But it's still going to happen.
Of course.
And so birth control needs to be available.
Right.
And condoms need to be available.
Right.
And both need to be used at the same time.
Right.
And don't be afraid to have that conversation with kids. This is how you do your best effort to prevent so you don't find yourself in this situation.
Sure. Right.
So,
well, that's the whole teaching of abstinence versus safe sex, right?
I cannot stand the abstinence talk. And I'm coming from Idaho. I didn't go to school in Idaho. I went to school in Oregon, which is very liberal. It's very progressive. And we had safe sex talks. Going as an adult and moving to Idaho, and thank God not having children in the school system where most of the schools there are abstinence only. And that drives me bonkers.
Right.
Because I am in that group that thinks if you teach that, they're just going to go off and do their own thing anyway. I mean, kids are barely listening to you in high school as it is.
It is difficult, though, as a parent, because you're right. There are certain things that even if you tell your kids, don't do that, wait till you're married, or don't do drugs, don't shoot heroin, it's bad for you, right? You can teach your kid that. Does that guarantee they're not going to do it? No. If I tell my kid don't have sex till you're married, does that guarantee that they're not going to have sex? Of course not.
No.
But it becomes difficult as a parent when if you do, like if you say, like there's a lot of parents who do that, and you might agree with this. There's a lot of parents I know that would say, okay, I don't want you to drink. But
if you are,
do it at our house and have a party here. And all your friends come over and you're all going to stay here. You're going to spend the night here. You're not going to drive. I totally understand why they're doing that because they don't want their kids to die in a drunk driving crash. Makes total sense, right? The ends justify the means kind of thing. But at the same time, it's really difficult because in some sense there, in your kid's mind, you're condoning the drinking.
Yes.
Right? In the same way with safe sex talk, right? You're telling them, don't do this, but when you do, right? It's a don't, but when, right? So it's almost like you're telling them, I know you're going to do this anyway. And again, I understand the point. You given the two options, do you want your kid to be, if your only two options were your kid's going to have sex safely and not get pregnant, or they're going to have sex and get pregnant? If those are the only two options, you're going to take the not pregnant option,
absolutely.
Right? But then most parents, well, not all parents, a lot of parents would say, but if there was a third option that they're just not going to have sex at all, that's what they want.
Right.
But then someone from your side would come in and say, yeah, but that's not ever an option, right? It's just not going to happen. But I think a big part of that is because of the culture and because of the way that we're going as a society, because it wasn't happening 60 years ago as much, 70 years ago. No, hardly at all. Like it just wasn't happening as much. Now, in this hookup culture, and when you look at all the influence that's coming from a lot of these singers and actresses and all this stuff that our little girls are growing up watching, it's like, what do you expect? And little boys, you know, it's like, what? Yeah, good point. Yeah, I'm not trying to say one or the other. Little boys too, they're brought up to say, oh, who's the cool kid?
Right.
The kid who can sleep with the most women.
Right.
You know, by the time you're 13, how many women can you get naked or whatever? You know, and it's like, yeah, for sure. If that's what they're being raised as, and that's what they're being taught, that's what's important, and that's what's going to give you status, of course.
Yeah.
You know? But I mean, I guess that's where I think that raising them, but again, it has to be your own personal beliefs as well. See, like for me, I never went to church growing up, ever.
Okay.
I mean, that's not true. My mom would take me to a different church every now and then because my mom, when growing up, she was spiritual. She grew up Catholic. My dad grew up Baptist, but they pretty much decided with me, they weren't going to push any of it on me.
Okay.
So they never, my mom bought me a little Bible I had when but it was never enforced. It was never like, there's only one way, there's only one right religion, there's only one right belief, and we're going to this church. And I think I maybe went to 3 or 4 different churches my whole entire life, up until like mid high school when I started attending youth groups because there was girls there that were inviting me to the youth group. So I would go to see the girls, right? And that's the only reason I was going. I felt that they shunned me. They looked at me like, oh, who's this punk kid? Very obviously not into anything to do with God or the Bible or anything. No. I wasn't an atheist, but I definitely wasn't religious.
You were going for the girls.
I was going for the girls.
Of course.
So because of that, and then I ended up becoming a Christian when I was like 23, 24, somewhere around there. I can't remember how old I am now. And then people will say, well, Ryan, are you going to raise your children in the church, right? Quote unquote, in the church.
Right.
And the answer is, well, yes, because I believe it's true. But then you run the risk of having them not have their own belief system. Does that make sense? Like they'll adopt your belief system, which is okay if it's correct and true, right? There's nothing necessarily wrong with it if that's the case. But at the same time, something I've always told my kids is you can't have my faith. You cannot, you can't be standing before God one day and God asks you, what did you do with your life? Or did you believe in me or whatever? And you say, well, my dad did. Yeah. It's not going to cut it, right? Like you don't need that, but I'm not going to not raise them in the church either.
But what you need to raise your kids with is the ability to question.
I do.
And that's where good parenting comes in.
Right.
Whether you are spiritual or not.
Right.
Good parenting to me is raising your kids with the ability and the awareness that they can question what's happening.
Yeah.
And if a teenager or even younger comes to their parent and say, why do we believe in this? And the parent's answer is,
we just do.
We just do because the church tells us to.
Right.
Then that child is never going to find their own faith or their own belief.
Right.
Or the child is going to completely rebel that faith and that belief and go off in their own way.
Well, they might rebel even if you explain to them why you believe.
They might.
If you have really good reasons for believing what you believe.
But don't you think they'll rebel in a more informative way?
Informative meaning they'll find things to attack the religion with?
Or find something that they connect with better. Because I don't think of rebelling as a negative.
It can be good.
Rebelling is not a negative.
Evil, that's good.
If you rebel against something that does not sit with you, so here I'm going back to core values.
Right.
So if my imaginary daughter comes to me and says, Mom, why did we grow up like this? And I say, because the church told us that this is the true path. Well, if she goes, that doesn't sit well with me. Well, I could be a crappy parent and say, well, too bad. That's what we believe. And
what would be the good parent in that situation?
The good parent would be, tell me more. Tell me why this doesn't sit with you. What is it about it that makes this uncomfortable for you?
Right.
Okay. Because belief or not, culture or not, parenting or not, each person, each child is a human being and has their own
after they're born.
After they're born and they start breathing on their own and taking your money and buying French fries.
Yes. Only if you raise them right.
Only if you raise them right. Then they start cultivating their own belief system. And I think the best cultivation of a belief system is to take part of what your parents taught you, part of what society teaches you, part of what your religion or spirituality leads you to, and part of what your instinct, your personality. Right. And you have to take each piece of that and cultivate your own core value system.
So I would agree with you if the whole goal there was your own personal happiness. I would agree. And I would say yes, and you would probably say, well, of course it is.
What else is there?
Well, if God exists, I believe he does, but I'm just saying hypothetically, for the sake of the argument, if God exists, does he exist in a way that he is, or does he only exist in a way that I decide how he is based on my beliefs?
So if I'm answering that question for myself, God exists in the way I believe him to be.
So he's subjective.
He is subjective.
Okay.
Yes. I do believe God exists.
Okay.
I do not believe in the way all the various ways that people worship him.
Okay. You said you believe God exists.
Yes.
Describe that for me.
I believe in God the way I believe in a higher power. But I think that looks different for every person. I knew we were going to talk about this, so I've been thinking about it for like a week.
Good. That's why I give you a heads up through the
haven't come up with anything. There's the atheist. I believe that God does not exist.
Right.
There
is no God.
There is no God.
Right.
The agnostic, which is there is nothing.
Well, agnostic. So atheism is the word theist, which is God. And the primitive in front of it means without.
Without God.
And the same with agnostic.
Okay.
Gnosis means knowledge. So it means without knowledge. So an agnostic is basically saying, I don't know if there's God or not. I don't know if there is.
Okay.
I don't believe there is, but I'm not saying there's not. I'm not saying there is, and I'm not saying there's not either, to where the atheist would say there is no God.
Okay.
Right.
So I'm definitely not atheist. I would say maybe borderline agnostic. I just like to believe in a higher power. And so that's going to look different for every person. And what I've always said for years and years is, if your higher power gets you to the place where you want to get to in your life and afterlife, and that's what you want to believe in, good on you. More power to you.
So I was when you started talking about in your life, and I was like, okay, then I was going to ask you, so you think that's it? And it's like a religious belief or a belief in a deity or a higher power is basically just to make your life on earth better. But then you said afterlife. So you do believe in an afterlife. You don't believe that once our physical bodies die, that's the end.
I believe that our souls get reincarnated.
Okay. So you believe in souls?
I do believe in souls.
Okay. I'm going to keep that in mind. We're going to go back to something in a minute. I was going to ask that earlier in a different discussion, but okay. So then what would an afterlife be then? It'd be reincarnated and back on earth again? Like the Hindu belief system, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I could just make my own religion.
You could. Lots of people do it all the time.
People do it all the time.
They do all the time. Yeah.
Worked out really well, like in Waco, I think.
Great.
And, yeah.
Worked out great there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it Guyana? That worked out really well too.
Yeah.
Jonestown. I do believe in past lives. I do believe that our souls get recycled. And I believe that each time they get recycled, we carry little bits of that other soul with us.
Okay.
So they become, in a sense, a clump of cells. Our souls are a clump of cells, with each cell being one of those lives.
Okay.
My body goes into the ground.
Right.
Or into the incinerator.
We agree there, for sure. Yeah, we're in agreement on that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, is there something between when I die and when I become someone else that is like a heaven or a waiting room or something? I don't know. I don't know. Have you seen the movie Defending Your Life?
No.
Must see. Write it down right now because we'll both
Defending
forget.
Your Life?
Yes.
Or My Life?
Defending Your Life. And I want to say it's early 90s maybe. Albert Brooks.
Oh, okay.
Defending Your Life.
So it's not a documentary.
Nope. No, they have not made a documentary of the afterlife yet.
I wrote Albert
Brooks and Meryl Streep.
Okay.
And it is about where you go when you die. And you go to, it's the limbo place, kind of.
Purgatory kind of thing.
They don't even call it purgatory. I think actually he makes a joke, is this purgatory? And they say no or whatever.
Okay.
But it's a place where you go where everything is beautiful and wonderful, and you can eat as much as you want and you don't gain any weight, and you wear these beautiful robes and sleep in these great beds. But what you're there for is to show highlights of your life to see if you get to move on to heaven.
Right.
And if you don't, you got to go back and start over again.
Right.
Okay?
So is that like good deeds? Like how many good deeds have you done to get you past that threshold?
Good deeds. Are you a good person? So they show highlights of your life, like you have a prosecutor and a defense attorney, and they show clips of your life and about crucial decisions that you made and whether or not that justifies a life fulfilled that gets you into heaven.
Okay.
But what I like about the movie is just if you don't pass, it's not like you go straight to hell. You just have to go back.
Right.
You got to go back to the beginning and start the board game over again.
It's happier that way.
Well, yeah.
Because you might not get into the paradise.
Right.
But you also don't go to torment either.
Right.
You just start over again.
You just start over again.
And then eventually everybody's going to get to paradise. It just might take somebody more tries than somebody.
Way more tries.
Right.
Right. And so it's a comical movie, but it's really got some poignant moments, and and it's a love story too,
Right.
and so it's great.
Yeah.
And Albert Brooks is genius.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So I kind of subscribe to that, and I don't know if that's because I was influenced by that movie as a young, small child. But
well, it probably falls into you, like if you like, you might like that idea. So that's why. Right?
I do like that idea.
Right. Exactly. So that's hard for me personally, like for my own self. So in my own personal beliefs, I would have a hard time with that, because to me, as we've already discussed, I'm more interested in what is true, not what I believe to be true, because I could very well believe something is true and be totally wrong. So for me, I'm attempting to find out what is the truth. And already a lot of people stop me and they say, well, no, wait a minute, Ryan. There is no the truth. There's just your truth, my truth, and I know a lot of people hold to that, especially when it comes to God and things like that. And I understand, because there's so many different people say, and I used to say this too, before I was a Christian, I'd say there's so many different religions.
Yeah.
I mean, and even within those religions, there's so many different sects of that religion.
Yep.
And they all disagree with each other, and they're always arguing, and they're always, well, you believe this, so I'm going to go start my own denomination. I'm going to go over here and start my own denomination because we believe that only...
That's how we got the Baptists and the Methodists and the Lutherans and all that.
Because you know what you don't find in the Bible? Baptists and Lutherans and Methodists and Presbyterians and Catholics, and you don't see any of that in there. It's not in there. You will not find any of that. And which is fascinating to me, because they're all using the same book.
Yep.
Yet they're all coming to different conclusions.
Yep.
Which for me, I've always been a skeptic, no matter what it is. Always been skeptical. I need to see evidence of it, as you know from talking to me.
Right.
Well, where's the evidence of that? Where's the proof of that? My mind's always worked that way. So when I became a Christian, which was something I hated a year before that.
Yeah.
Hated them. Hated everything to do with them. You guys and your Bible and your one way to heaven crap,
You're
get away from me.
crazy
Your narrow-mindedness. I don't want anything to do with that. Stay away from me. So then when I became what I hated, I was like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
So then I'm like, okay, so here's this book. So I started to read this book, and I'm like, okay, now it's kind of describing what happened to me without reading it first. But now I'm like, well, but is it true? Right? Like, really? And then I started thinking, like what I was just saying, you have all these different denominations, all these different belief systems stemming from the same book, which I'm like, how can that be? So I started I spent like 2-3 years just going at it, like trying to prove it wrong, trying to find contradictions. I'm reading books by atheists. I'm reading books by people that used to be Christians but now aren't because they've proved the Bible wrong. Like all these different things, like people like Bart Ehrman and I'm reading stuff by Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens and some of these other atheists and I'm examining all of their attacks. Like they'll say, well, I don't believe the Bible's true because of this.
Okay.
This verse says this verse says this. Boom, contradiction. Take that, Christians. That kind of stuff.
Okay.
The kind of stuff I would have fed on a year prior to me becoming a Christian. So I guess all that to say, I'm saying a long story to get to my point of being, I am always totally open to being shown that Christianity's wrong. The Bible's not true. There's many ways to heaven, which mean Jesus lied basically because he said he's the only way. But I'm open to all that being false. But I need to see the evidence behind that, right? So somebody can't just tell me, hey, why do you believe the Bible? It's full of contradictions. I don't know. Some people might say, oh yeah, totally. See ya. I'm like, where? Show me. Very rarely do people take me up on it. Right. They'll be like, well, everybody knows that, man. I said, do they? Do you know that? Well, yeah, I know that. Show me where.
Well, and from a scholarly level, very few people that follow the Bible have read the Bible. Okay? Yep. So they don't want to take up that type of argument. And this is where things come into play that confuse me even, because I do have a very strong belief system, but I don't have a lot to back it up. Right. And that may seem weak and narrow-minded to some people, but I just think that I can go off of instinct more than what a book is teaching me. I try to take a little bit of both. Sure. But people are being argumentative about the Bible when they haven't actually sat down to read it or interpret it to the depth that you have. Sure. So if you want to come at me and say, but the Bible says this, I would say, I don't doubt you for a second that that's what the Bible says.
But you don't necessarily believe it's true.
But what do you mean? What does it mean when it says this? Right. So does it say this? Yes. Right. But then you've got one person that says, well, it says a man can't lay down with another man, or there's some quote in the Bible about that. Right. So then that obviously means that all homosexuality is a sin and blah, blah, blah. And they could even spin it more out of control than that. Well, it means that this. I know you and I have talked about that book, The Year of Living Biblically. Yeah. Okay. So that he says the Bible says don't shave your face. Why are we shaving our face? Why did you shave your face this morning? Right. Because I don't believe the Bible. Right.
Well, well, yeah. I'll let you finish, but yeah, you're going different directions.
I know I am. Yeah. Because I do get really kind of. I get bent out of shape with the people that take a book and then live by it. Right. By it being true. You know what? I love Harry Potter. Yeah. But I know deep down inside, Hogwarts is not real.
Stop. Blasphemy.
I'm sorry. Dumbledore did not exist. Right. Okay. The Bible to me is a story. Right. I do believe parts of it happened. I do believe a lot of it happened. Right. But I also believe that it was created to give people a path. To give people, some people need something to hold on to help them.
Right. The crutch.
No, I didn't say crutch.
Well, that's what a crutch is for.
Guidance.
It helps people.
It has a negative connotation, though.
I know it does.
Guidance. Right. Some people can walk their path. Right. Without guidance. Right. And some people need it. Right. And so the Bible was created to help people that needed guidance. And if they want to believe that, that's great. Right. But again, don't force me to believe it if I don't.
Right. But you're open to it being true.
I definitely am.
You just don't believe it at this point in your life.
I'm not going to live my life according to it.
But you would if you believed it was all true. Like if you, let's say you woke up tomorrow and all of a sudden your whole belief has changed and now you believe that the Bible from beginning to end is 100% true.
So I'd have to stop shaving my face?
Well, let's address that because that's the second time you brought it up. Yeah. Well, you should stop shaving your face anyway. If you are, you shouldn't be. So when we read the Bible, we need to, and this is not cop out. This is, we need to take it as it's written, right? So when you look at the Old Testament, especially when you're looking at Leviticus and Deuteronomy and all these Old Testament books that were written specifically to the Jewish mindset, and God had the Jewish people, because they were set apart as his chosen people, to show himself through these people. He gave them a bunch of things to do that would set them apart so that people would know, oh, that guy's Jewish, right? That's one of them.
Okay.
This certain way of shaving the beard. Okay. That whole thing. Okay. The whole thing about tattoos. Same thing. A lot of people say, oh, Christians shouldn't have tattoos. That's nowhere in the Bible. I mean, it's in the Bible, but it's not addressed to the Christian. It's addressed to the Jewish mindset, even of then. Okay. I wouldn't even argue and say that Jews today shouldn't get tattoos. I think that's irrelevant. Right. So it has to be taken in that way, right? And then we get to the New Testament, which doesn't discount the Old Testament, but it's a new covenant, right? Mm-hmm. Testament means covenant. So now Jesus comes into play, and now he's our mediator between God and man, right? It's no longer the law. It's no longer the Jewish rituals and all the 600 different laws that God gave the Jews. So that's where the shaving falls into play. Okay. And that book by Jacob, whatever his name was, I forgot his name.
I can't remember his name either.
Yeah, I'm picturing his head. It starts with a J, I think.
Okay.
But anyway, most of that deals with Old Testament stuff.
Yes,
right?
Of course.
He's going around throwing rocks.
It's a little absurd.
Yeah, and it's hilarious. It's hilarious.
The clothing, the woven cloth, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So, but all that to say that if you believed it was true, let's say it said in there that men can't shave their beards. But if it's true, does it really matter whether or not I want to shave my beard or not? If it's true, if it's true, and if it's what God wants me to do or not do, then I should do it or not do it, right?
It doesn't matter to me. It's what you believe.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. The hypothetical that I'm portraying has nothing to do with what I think or what you think or what you believe or what I believe. I'm just saying if it is true, and that's my hypothetical, right? Because I believe it is and you don't. But I'm just saying for the sake of the argument, it is. And it says, Ryan, you should only shave your beard in the shape of a whatever. Octopus. Of an octopus, yes. Right? Then I should do that if that's what God tells me to do, because he's God. Yeah. Right? If it's not true, who cares, right? If it's not true and it's just written by men and just men are being funny, oh, let's make it so guys have to shave their beards like an octopus. Wouldn't that be hilarious? And let's watch them all. Look at them. Look what they're doing. What a bunch of idiots. Right. So, yeah, there's that, too.
I don't think you'll ever find the truth until you get to the end of your life. Mm-hmm. I think it is it's scholarly and admirable that you are seeking the truth, but I don't think that it is. I don't think it's necessary, and I don't think it's realistic for you to find the truth.
So if there's a God, okay, and he does have a plan and a purpose with human beings, mm-hmm. and he created us and he put us on earth and he's put all this stuff here for us to live. Sunlight we need, food we need, water we need, oxygen, all this stuff, right? Oxygen. He's made a procreation process, all this. And he's done all that. He's made photosynthesis. Right. It's amazing, really.
It is.
And you look at all that, and if we're assuming, for the sake of the argument, that God made all that, right? And he made us, do you think that he would want us to know him? And he would want us to understand him, not fully, not become gods, but at least do you think that he would want us to know some things about him?
I can't answer that because I wouldn't know why God would have made all of this. Okay. Because why did God make pedophiles? Right. Why did God make psychopath behaviors, right?
Well, did he? That's the question.
Well, It either is or it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
You either subscribe to God made us the way we are,
Mm-hmm.
or you don't. You can't pick and choose.
Well,
God made us the way
yeah.
we are, unless you're a psychopath, and then God had nothing to do with that.
I would say it like this. I would say God makes us who we are, and who we are creatures with an innate sense of right and wrong, but also with the right to free choice.
But psychology and biology has taught us that people that have dissociative disorders and social psychopath tendencies have a different chemical makeup.
But they still have a choice, because there's people that have that same makeup that aren't serial killers.
That's nature versus nurture. And it, to me, in my mind, it's 50-50. So, okay, so here's me and here's my background. I do come from a biology background and a psychology background. Cool. So I've studied a lot of this. I grew up in a church, a Lutheran church, where I went, not all the time. And I listened to sermons, and they read gospels, and I got to sing songs, which is the best part, right?
You like to sing?
I love to sing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. We'll wrap this up with the music. We need to circle back around to the music to lower it down to a less intense level. And I'll tell you why I really like music the way I do.
Okay.
But so real quick, do you believe in Adam and Eve?
Yes.
Do you believe that God created Adam and then took the rib and created Eve?
Yes.
And do you believe those were the first humans?
Yes.
Okay. Do you believe in evolution?
No, not. I believe in microevolution, not macroevolution.
So do you believe in Neanderthals?
I believe that. No, I guess not. Not in that sense. No, not in the sense of the Geico cavemen being moronic. I think that we've been degenerating from Adam and Eve.
Oh, so we started at Adam and Eve, we degenerated down to a caveman, and then had to work our way back up?
Not in a technology stance. Okay. I don't think that Adam and Eve had iPods and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
I think from that stance, they were primitive. They didn't have the tools that we have. And I think when we find fossils and we find tools and stuff, I do think tools have evolved and that kind of thing. I'm just thinking, I think Adam and Eve were the purest humans that have ever existed. And I think that as time has gone on, we become more and more corrupt.
Okay. So I'm in this really strange juxtaposition where I believe in evolution. I believe in Darwin. I believe in the science. I believe we came from Neanderthals. I believe that life started on this planet as amoebas and protozoas, and that we came out of the sea, and that I believe that chickens came from dinosaurs. Okay.
But we need a whole other hour to talk about that.
Well, right. I believe that Adam and Eve did exist, but I do not believe that God created them.
So you believe in a God, but he didn't have anything to do with the creation of our planet or the people on it? Or do you think that he created the amoeba? So you're like progressive creationism, where he created the amoeba and put it into motion, and then that evolved eventually to us.
No, I believe that God is here in the ethos. I believe that science and biology and scientific circumstance created everything on this planet. I believe that God is up there, kind of, nudging things along.
Right. So you don't think it's unguided?
Correct.
You don't think it's spontaneous, random, like most evolutionists would say? Because they most of them will present it without God, and they say, no, life just arose spontaneously with no intelligence, no direction, just boom, primordial soup, amoeba.
Well, yeah, the Big Bang Theory, primordial soup, amoeba.
Right, but I would agree with the Big Bang Theory. I would just say God banged it.
Oh God,
Just
now we're going way back. Yeah, no, I can't say yes or no to that. I think in our present day, in 2022, I think that science created the planet that we are on. Science has created us as
When
human
you say
beings.
science, what does that mean?
Going all the way back to the amoeba.
Yeah, but what does that mean when you say science created something?
That's biology. That's evolution. That's the planet. The planet was CO2 heavy.
Right.
It
I
was-
understand. Yeah, I get all
that whole.
I
the
understand the
whole
whole theory. I'm just saying you're saying science as if it's personified. Because when you say science created, science is the study of what's around us. So how does science create something?
Okay, well then I don't have the right word. Excuse me.
No, I'm not trying to say that. I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
From back to the creation of the Earth with the Big Bang Theory, whatever you want to call that, from then to now, evolution.
Right.
Can I just say evolution?
Yeah, but I guess the question I'm trying to understand where you're coming from, the main point is it unguided evolution? Is it happening without any cause, any outside cause? Like you could call it God, you could call it the universe. I mean, but it's got to be something personified in a sense, right? Something that's got to be putting it into motion on purpose, or causing it to happen, or it just spontaneously happened out of nothing. There it was. No intelligence, no design, no nudging, no nothing. Just boom, there it is. We don't know where. There was no creator. There was no.
I guess at the beginning, the spark is spontaneous.
Okay.
And the intelligence grew and adapted as our planet grew and adapted.
So the intelligence came after the spark.
Yes.
Okay, so it's unguided. So creation was unguided.
Yeah. Boy, I don't want to say yes or no to these questions. Yes.
Okay.
But I don't believe we are unguided now on our planet. As far as a higher power.
Right. But do you think that higher power was kind of part of the evolution process? Like the spark was unguided, the spark just happened. And then somewhere in there, this higher power came into being. And then now we're thousands of years later, and now that higher power is guiding the world as it stands. But it didn't start with that higher power.
I'm going to have to get back to you on that one.
All right.
I really don't know. And see, this is where I get muddled and there are people on this planet that are scientists that also believe in God.
Right. Lots of them.
You know, there are Christian scientists and there's a name for it that believe in, you know, Darwinism and evolution, and also believe in creationism.
It's progressive creationism.
Yeah. So I don't know where my belief starts. I don't know where the spontaneity starts for me. I haven't, honestly, have not sat down to dissect that enough. I just know what I feel, you know, what I've been taught, what I've been raised, what I've seen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me throw this at you.
Okay.
And I think I brought this up in the first one too, so it's gonna be a repeat if anybody's listening to this. But there's a guy.
No one's listening. It's okay.
Probably not. We'll have like two listeners.
Two people.
Our parents. But there's a guy named Ray Comfort. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He's a New Zealander. He's fun to listen to because he's got that cool accent. But he has a thing where he talks to people and he says he'll take them and he'll show them a building, right? You may have heard a similar argument. He'll say, well, look at this building. And the person says, okay. He goes, what if I just told you that building just appeared one day? It doesn't have a builder. There's no designer. It was just like pieces of glass and cement and siding and all this stuff just kind of flew together in the air and it formed this building.
Right.
Right. And the person will say, well, that's ridiculous.
Right.
Of course, this building has a builder. And you say, well, why? Why do you say that? Well, because look at it. It's been designed, right? Or you take something like a sign that says, do not enter the bridge or do not cross the bridge, right?
Okay.
And you ask them, do you think this sign just happened? Like it just like these letters just formed onto this sign and it just happens to spell out a message. And there just happens to be a bridge right there.
Okay.
You'd say, well, no, of course not. Obviously, somebody with intelligence made this sign to warn people, hey, don't go in that bridge, right? Or whatever, right? It makes sense because it's intelligence. And you wouldn't, is it possible that something like that could happen unguided with intelligence? I guess. I mean, it's possible, but not likely, right? Not probable. So then he turns it and he says, okay, now look at the world. Look at like the kind of some things we were just saying, the fact that human beings are here, and you have photosynthesis, like you were saying, and you have our bodies need a certain amount of protein, a certain amount of all these different vitamins and things that our bodies needs to survive. And guess what? They just happen to be here on Earth.
Right.
We need to breathe a certain kind of air. Just happens to be here. We need to drink water. It just happens to be here. Right. And I keep saying just happens to be loosely, right? Because that's kind of ridiculous, in my opinion, to think that.
Okay.
So his whole point is, why can we look at something that is obviously created by man, like a building or something inanimate, right? Yet we can turn around after saying, no, that would definitely had a builder, that definitely had a creator. Then we turn right around and look at something far more complex, far more expansive, like the universe and people and brainwaves and emotions and relationships and love and courage and all this stuff, right? And we say, random chance. No intelligence behind it, no intelligent creation, no design, just came out of nowhere from nothing. There it is, right?
Okay, so when I hear you posit this, though, what I'm hearing you say is we went from 0 to 60.
No.
In a random spontaneity, a building just appearing is going from nothing to something.
Let's say that building took billions of years. Does that make it any more credible to say that it, or the sign? The sign has an actual message on it. So let's say it took billions of years for that sign. Let's say that's my argument. No, that sign took billions of years to spontaneously create itself. It still doesn't make any sense because it's intelligence. You see intelligence behind it. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, I see what you're saying. But the intelligence came from... Okay, so in the case, I'm so literal. In the case of the sign, so listen, I'm not very good at ethereal, intangible things. I'm a very tangible, literal, realist person.
Yes, me too.
So in the case of the sign was created by a human.
We assume. Why do we assume that?
Because I saw the human paint it.
Well, maybe you didn't. You'd still assume that.
I would assume.
Even if you didn't see
yes,
it.
Yes, I'm assuming.
Right? Yeah.
The human made the building. The human made the sign.
Right.
Well, did the humans spontaneously appear? No. They came from cavemen. Cavemen came from monkeys. Monkeys came from the animal that came before that. All the way back to the amoeba.
Right. Where'd the amoeba come from?
That's the question I can't answer.
Right.
So you're saying you would believe that God created the amoeba knowing that we would get to where we are today, driving cars and living in houses.
I'm saying that is a more credible idea to me than the idea that we just naturally, just
spontaneously,
like unguided, no intelligence involved.
Okay.
I don't believe that.
Okay.
Because I believe there's a lot of holes in the evolutionary theory as it is.
Sure.
But I'm saying that if someone were to say to me, yes, Ryan, but intelligence created the amoeba, which then, and then he put in motion, yes, knowing that it would eventually become us driving cars. That makes more sense to me.
Okay, I could get on board with the fact that God created the amoeba, or that God created this rock that we live on.
Okay.
Okay?
Right.
But did he know that we would lead to where we are today? You and I drinking ice blended chais.
I think so. That's the blessing to us. Right? That's a blessing.
The ice blended chai?
Was good, right?
Yeah, it was really good.
It was good.
It was really good. I don't think that he knew that we were going to be where we are today. Because if he did, there are so many things along the way that he could have omitted or changed.
Right.
And he didn't.
Right.
And that's why I think it is your personal choice to put as much faith into God as you want to. I don't put a ton of faith into God because it pisses me off that he didn't fix some things that I think he should have.
But see, here's the hard thing with that. A lot of people feel exactly the way you do.
I'm sure.
One of the biggest arguments I get is worded something along these lines. If there's a God of love, why does he allow XYZ?
Right.
Why does he allow 2-year-olds to die from cancer? Why does he allow children being born into pedophilic families? Why?
Cancer in general.
Cancer in general. Why? Right. And those are good questions, but I have a hard time for myself if I was going to say, well, the reason I don't believe in God, because basically what you're saying is, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but this is basically what you're saying. I have a hard time believing in God because he's not acting in a way that I think he should be.
No, because he's not acting in a way other people tell me.
Oh, okay. Okay, so misguided people are telling you that God
will protect you. God will save you. God's watching you.
Right.
God will look out for you.
Yeah,
really?
But why do you assume? So when something bad happens, you assume that's not true. You assume that he's not looking out for you.
If something bad happens to me, I do not look skyward and say,
Right.
damn you, God.
Right. But you also don't say thank you either. Right?
Why would I say thank you?
Right. Why would you? Have you ever had anything bad, what we would call bad, happen to you that in hindsight was a good thing?
All the time.
Right.
All the time.
So if we're dealing with a God who's all-knowing, and again, here's my hypothetical, if we're dealing with a God who's all-knowing, he knows everything about me, he knows every decision I'm going to make, he knows all the mistakes I'm going to make, he knows all the good things I'm going to do, all the bad things I'm going to do. If he knows all that already, and he has my best interests in mind, then he's going to allow me to mess up. He's going to allow me to get hurt. He's going to allow, it's just like our kids. It's like the same analogy with our kids. I can't walk around my kids aren't going to learn anything if I put them in a bubble.
Right.
And I just let them float around in a bubble.
Okay.
They're going to have to fall down and scrape their knee. They're going to have to go through hard times. They're going to have to do that stuff.
Okay, so I've been married twice. Mm-hmm. I'm on my second marriage. And people say to me all the time, do you regret your first marriage?
Right.
Okay, so first of all, I regret very, 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 very little in my life.
Right.
Because everything you do is an opportunity to learn.
To learn, right.
Okay. And every person you date, you may not learn what you're looking for, but you learn what you're not looking for.
Right.
Right?
Sure.
Okay? So everywhere you turn, this interaction that you and I are having today will forever change and shape my life from this point moving forward.
Yeah, me too.
Did God put us in this room together?
Yes.
No. We work together. We're of similar age. Yep. We're of similar mindsets.
Right.
We both have good humor.
Right.
We get along well.
Yes.
And this is how we came together.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the random unintelligent theory.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. All right. So, do you regret getting married? Because now you have a divorce under your belt? Mm-hmm. No way. No. Right. My first husband was a wonderful person. Mm-hmm. Okay. Shaped a lot of who I became. Mm-hmm. It was my 20s. It was a real shaping portion of any person's life. Mm-hmm. Okay. So now here's my question to you. Okay. And I think I already know the answer. So I get divorced. Mm-hmm. I get divorced at 27. Yeah. Right. Horrible. Right. Nobody should get divorced at that age, let alone ever. Right. But it happens. Do you regret it? No. Okay. So fast forward like 7 years, my first husband, dies.
Oh, wow.
Now, if I hadn't gotten divorced, I would have been a widow at 35. Right. Now, then people are like, whew, well, you really dodged a bullet there. Right. So my question to you is, do you think God pushed me or nudged me or guided me to get divorced so that I wouldn't have to go through the process of my young husband dying of cancer and me becoming a grieving widow before I turned 40?
That's a hard question to answer, because whenever you get into the whys of God, that's where I stop.
Me too.
Because I can't answer the whys. Can I tell you that that's the way it happened and that it happened that way for a reason? Yes. I can answer that definitively.
But what's the reason?
I don't know.
There you go.
I don't know at this point. I think that's something that you'll learn if you haven't yet. That's something you'll learn eventually. You know, it'll manifest itself. It'll show you that this is why.
So that word reason and that meaning behind reason, I categorize that as destiny,
Okay.
fate,
Yeah.
serendipity,
Yeah.
karma. Okay. I don't categorize that as God's will.
Right.
I categorize that as this is the way my life was destined to be.
But
So
who destined it? The word destined brings with it intelligence.
yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So if it wasn't God, it had to be something else intelligent. It couldn't just been nothing.
And that's where I kind of tend to go, who cares?
Right. Right. And in a sense, you're right? Because you could waste your whole life thinking about something like that and it might be fruitless.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I mean. Like, I don't get into the whys.
Okay, because if I had never, and this is where we get into regrets, my destiny says, if I had never gone to school to be a flight attendant, I got a job working as a flight
cool.
attendant.
Fun.
Right? I met another flight attendant. She said, I have this guy I want you to meet. I think you'd be really good. I met him. He turned out to be my first husband, right?
Cool.
We get married. He moves us. We moved to Vegas. Then we moved to Boise. All the decisions that made that. Okay. I get to Boise. We're not happy. We get a divorce. He leaves. I stay.
You met your new husband.
Where do I meet my new husband?
Right.
So if I hadn't become a flight attendant, I wouldn't have met Brian. I wouldn't have gotten married. I wouldn't have moved to Boise, which means I wouldn't have gotten divorced and met Mike.
Right. And you wouldn't be sitting here right now.
And I wouldn't be sitting here right now with you.
All right.
So that's my destiny. I made some choices along the way that could have controlled that destiny, but I don't believe God made those choices for me.
I don't believe so either.
Okay, good.
I don't believe that God makes choices for us, but I do think that he allows things to happen, and I do think that he knows what choices we're going to make before we make them. Wow. So I think that he orchestrates things in a sense that includes that, because again, he gave us free will. He created us with free will. He could have just as easily, assuming this is an all-powerful God I'm talking about, he could have made a bunch of robots and said, look, you're going to think only these things, you're going to do only these things, and that's it. No free will, no choices, nothing. You just are what you are. You base it solely on instinct.
Right.
You know, like a lot of animals, their lives are basically on instinct, right? They just, I'm hungry, go kill animal. I'm thirsty, go to river. You know, it's like, no, we have that too, in a sense. We do get hungry, we do get thirsty, but we also think, I'm hungry. Do I want pizza or a cheeseburger? Okay. Do I want to be a vegetarian or a meat eater? Do I want to go on a diet or do I want to eat like a pig? And
so God has allowed us to make choices to set our own destiny.
I wouldn't say it that way.
Okay. Well, that's how I would say it.
I would say within his plan and what is our destiny, I would say that's plan, destiny. I would say those are the same thing. He allows for our choices within those things. I don't think I can ever make a choice that would go against him per se.
Because you're a good person?
No, because he allows for that.
But what about
in other words, I can never surprise him.
What about the rapists? You think God's surprised by the rapists?
No, I don't.
Why would he allow them to do that?
What was the first word you said?
I don't remember.
Why? Don't know.
That's where people get pissed off and say, I don't believe in God.
Correct.
Because God wouldn't create.
Because God is not lining up with who they want him to be.
Yeah.
Correct.
Or because we don't know why. Because we don't know the answer to the question.
Well, we don't know why, and we also see what's being allowed to happen as horrendous, which I would agree. And I would think to myself, if I was God,
or my God,
I wouldn't let that to happen.
My God wouldn't allow that.
Exactly. Before a guy started to molest a little kid, I just strike him dead before he could do it.
Zap.
Right? Gone. Can God do that? Yes. But does he all the time? No. Why? Don't know.
Who knows?
Right. Somebody knows. But before we end, we got about 10 minutes left.
Okay.
You were going to get back around to music, and I'll let you do that too.
Yeah.
The one question that I thought of when we were talking about the soul.
Yeah.
So back to the abortion thing.
Okay.
Do you believe that the soul, so I assume when you say soul, you mean it's the inner essence of who we truly are. Right?
Yep.
That's what I believe a soul is.
Yep.
The way I've described it to my kids is this body is basically like a car.
Yep.
that our soul drives around.
Right.
And eventually it's going to break down.
Yep.
But that's not the end of us because we're not the car. We're what's in the car. And then that's going to leave our body and our body slumps to the ground. But that's not me dying.
That's my
body dying, right?
Yes, I agree.
So when we look at it that way and you look at back to the abortion thing, at what point in your view does the soul enter the body? Or is it always there from conception? Or do you believe somewhere around that 6 or 7 month that's when the soul enters the body?
No, first breath.
First breath is when
I
the
think
soul...
your first breath is when you take in your soul.
Okay. So before that moment, basically all babies are exactly the same.
Yeah.
Okay. They're different sizes, different colors, different shapes. Mm-hmm. But other than that, they're just lumps of flesh, basically. They don't really have any...
personality or value or essence. Okay. Not value. I don't mean value.
Right.
I meant core values.
Core values.
Yeah. Yeah, your soul enters when you take your breath.
Okay.
Yeah. Because, no, there's no because. I don't know why. I have zero to back that up with.
I appreciate the honesty in everything today. It's really cool. It's just like, I don't know. I don't know. Just what I believe. I don't know. That's good. That's a better place to be than saying, this is what I believe, and then giving me a bunch of stuff that's not true.
Right.
And saying, this is why I believe it.
Yeah.
No, just say, I don't know.
I don't know.
It's just what I believe.
I have no idea.
You know?
I mean, my husband will question me all the time. Well, why do you think you're right? And I go, I don't know. I just do. I just do. I have a lot of facts up here in my head, and sometimes they come out and sometimes they don't. This is when we, our mutual coworker Kathy and I, we have this discussion all the time at trivia.
Right. Oh, okay.
Why do you think that's the right answer? I don't know. We're constantly going, why?
Right.
Why do you think it's that?
Right.
And you're like, I don't know. It's just my gut instinct.
It's a hunch. Yeah.
It's just my hunch. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's somewhere in the Rolodex of all the things I've learned over the last 44 years. I just can't get to it quick enough.
Right.
To get.
Well, that's totally true, right? With trivia, we've got all this stuff filling our heads, and I know stuff. I don't know how I even learned it.
I don't know how I know it.
I'll be doing trivia, and it's like, oh, who was the singer or the backup singer for so and so? And I'm like, John Cadiddlehopper.
John DeBubba.
Or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, correct. And Bethany's like, how do you know that?
I don't know.
I don't know. I must have heard it somewhere. I must have been somewhere and they said it on a radio or on a TV or something.
So as far as information, you also collect beliefs, and sometimes you don't know where you got it from or how it came to form.
Right. But for me, that's not good enough for me. I need to get rid of anything that I attained that way.
Wow.
Because I guess I just have the kind of mindset where I need like solidarity. I need that. And my mind's always been that way. It doesn't matter what it is. I mean, I make room for opinion because I think that exists. Back to the pizza. Yeah. I'm not going to die on my deathbed saying, no, mushrooms all the way. Anybody doesn't like mushrooms, they're wrong. No, opinion, right? That's opinion. But when it comes to things like spirituality, which I think is a pretty big, important decision. Yeah. I can't play it off as lightly as mushrooms on pizza. It's bigger than that, you know, because if it's true, it's important. If it's not true, it's not important. But that's what I need to find out, right? That's what I think we all need to find out. I think that there's nothing more important for us to find out, because if all there is this, and we just die and we're worm food, and that's the end, then I would agree with everyone and say, hey, let's just whoop it up. Who cares? I'm going to live fast, die young, man. Bring on all the drugs, bring on all the women, bring on all the everything. Let's just, why not, you know? Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, because I do question what and why. Mm-hmm. What is happening and why is this happening? Right. Like to me or to my family or in the world. Right. But there are quite a number of things that I just go, I just feel this way. Right. And so now here we come full circle back to music. End on this. Because it's the same way. Mm-hmm. If you were to say to me, why do you like this song? Exactly. Sometimes I go, I don't know. Right. I can't tell you why. So it makes you feel, though. It's music. It's personal sometimes. It's the way it makes me feel. Like Michael Jackson said. The way you make me feel. I've done that karaoke before. Oh, nice. The day he died, actually, we went and did a karaoke Michael Jackson tribute. Awesome. Yeah, it was pretty great. So I love things that I can sing to, because I love
the way singing makes me feel.
Yeah, I'm the same way, but I only do it either in the shower or in the car.
I'll sing anytime.
Yeah, not me.
It doesn't matter. I sing at work.
I don't sing in front of people, usually. Maybe my family. That's it. You know?
I'll sing in the car. I'll sing, in the shower, whatever. I love karaoke. So I like all these different genres, but I mainly do like female voices because I like singing.
Okay, totally. I'm the same as you. I prefer listening to bands that I feel like I can sound more like the singer. Yes, totally. Exactly. If I'm ever singing, like I mentioned Alec Benjamin.
Yeah.
I love him.
Yeah.
But I can't sing along with him because his voice is so high.
Right.
But you give me something like Pearl Jam or Stone Temple Pilots or something like that.
Lower.
Oh, man, I can nail that. Or some of the punk bands that I like, nail it.
Yeah.
But anything else, it's not as fun to me because I can't sing along as well with it.
Yeah.
I've never had anybody else say that before.
Oh, that's what the enjoyment of music is to me.
Yeah.
And some people, like I love Adele.
Yes, me too.
Because I love the way she sounds and because I love the way I think I sound when I'm singing along to her.
I can't sound like Adele.
I mean, I don't think anybody can.
Right.
But then when you can actually listen to her lyrics, you have to do both in conjunction.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes my husband will say, "How can you like this song? Listen to the words." And I'm like, "I've never listened to the words of this song.
I'm like that sometimes
I can mouth them. I can sing them.
Right.
I know what I'm saying, but I've never listened to like the meaning behind it."
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't mean that I do that with everything. OK Go. The band OK Go. Love them.
Yeah.
Listening to some of their lyrics and some of their songs, because they're kind of a lot of their songs are a big FU, and a lot of their songs are do what you want, empowerment.
Right.
So I think specific lyrics speak to me when they catch my ear. They catch that part of my brain that deciphers what they're meaning.
Right.
And it just happens to be a catchy tune, a poppy background, and something I can sing to.
Right. That's usually the first thing that gets me. Is the way it sounds.
Yes.
And then later I might look into the lyrics.
Yes.
Maybe not.
Yes.
Maybe I'll just be like, oh, I like this song.
And sometimes the lyrics hit you right off the bat. So we were talking earlier about songs that make you cry. There's not new, but a couple years old. Demi Lovato came out with a song called I Love Me. And it's very very poppy,
very
peppy.
humble sounding with the title.
I Love Me.
Yeah.
Well, it's don't laugh because she's basically saying, like one of her lines is, I'm a black belt when I'm beating up on myself, but I'm an expert when I'm loving someone else. So it's about how much crap she takes in and puts on herself. And the first time someone was like, "Oh, you should listen to this song," and boy, did I listen to that at the wrong time because I was bawling. But those words spoke to me at that time and still do.
Right.
So sometimes the lyrics hit me right away, but I'm like you. Does it sound good to my ear? Does it sound good to my brain? Can I sing to it?
Yep.
Does that person sound like I sound when I sing so I can kind of emulate that?
Yeah.
And then maybe I'll take a look at the lyrics or I'll notice the bass line. Yeah. There's certain bands and certain songs, Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh, yeah.
The bass line.
Oh,
I
man.
mean,
awesome.
Amazing. I can't think of the name of the album, but it's not the latest one that came out, but maybe the one it's the one with the little girl walking down the street on the cover. Oh, this is terrible.
I've seen that one.
It's I think it's probably almost the best album that they've ever done.
Really? And it's recent?
I mean, I'm terrible with time. 5 years.
Okay.
Maybe.
I thought like Stadium Arcadium was the last. I thought that was the last one.
I don't know. I'll have to look it up. But there's a song with a great bass line. I mean, it's just so
What's
great.
What's the song?
I don't know. I'm terrible with names. I'm terrible. Pull up your Spotify.
I know. I gotta
look at it.
Up. I gotta look these things up. But if you don't know, based on the album cover.
Okay, we'll take a pause.
Let's see. With a girl walking down the street?
Yeah, she might be carrying a balloon. There might be a bear following her. Type in Red Hot Chili Peppers discography. We better cut this out.
Goodness gracious.
Gotta push pause on this.
Well, because I mean, if you're talking about an awesome bass line, I gotta hear that album. I don't even think I've even heard the album you're talking about. I thought I've heard all their stuff.
We'll rewind and then I'll say the name of the song and it will sound like I know what I'm talking about.
Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah, see, I haven't heard a lot. Whoa. Oh, it's this one.
What's it called?
The Getaway.
Yes.
Is the album. I never heard of the album.
Yes.
Never heard it.
Okay,
What's
wait.
the song?
Okay, wait. Maybe number 3? Sorry, Misty.
We Turn Red? The Getaway, Dark Necessities, We Turn Red, The Longest Wave, Goodbye Angels, Sick Love, Go Robot.
Listen, so there's this thing called Spotify.
Yeah, I know.
It's really great.
I don't have it.
And
I'm not cool enough yet. I gotta get cool enough.
And I will say, though, if we're talking top 5 albums, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Blood Sugar, Sex Magic.
That's the best one by far.
Best one.
Yeah,
Best one by far. Thank you.
Hey, just as a side note, do you know what year that came out? 1991.
Oh, okay, well.
The greatest year in music history.
Oh, look, it's a little girl walking down the street and there is a bear.
Yeah, I saw it. I saw the cover. That's
All
why.
right.
That's how I knew which one it was. But I've never heard the
Nope,
song
not
before.
that one.
I never heard the album.
Nope.
Ooh, that one sounds cool, though.
So good. This one might be it.
Yeah.
Goodbye Angels.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll check it out later.
Okay.
It's awesome.
Wait, oh shoot, now I have to stop it. Okay, so there's this really great song called Goodbye Angels.
Okay, yes. And who's the band again?
Red Hot Chili Peppers. Yeah. And it's from the album The Getaway. So that's another one that you could pretty much push play and walk away is The Getaway.
So you think it's their best album?
No, I think Blood Sugar Sex Magic is their best album.
Yes.
For what it was in 91,
right?
Nobody was doing that.
No.
Nobody was doing that kind of music.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
But for where they are now, oh my God, 1991, flash forward to 2016, and they are still just as solid of a band.
I know.
It gives me goosebumps.
Right.
Anthony Kiedis is just like, I'm speechless. Okay.
Yeah. No,
so,
they're amazing.
Yeah.
They're awesome.
All right. And now there's another band. So anyway, my whole long point is I usually don't listen to the music, but there are certain, it catches me. So like the bass line of that song catches me. Mm-hmm. There's a band called The National. The drummer is hands down the best drummer I've ever heard in my life.
The National?
The National. And the bass or the drum line to the first song on the album of the first album I ever listened to with them. Boxer. Boxer is the name of the album.
Okay.
And Fake Empire is the name of the first song on that album.
Okay.
Just the drum. Just don't listen to anything else but the drums.
Okay.
It's amazing.
Awesome.
So sometimes something grabs me like that and I go, yes, this is why I like this song.
Yes. Very cool.
Okay. Listen, I'm just going to say one last thing.
All right.
Thank you for having me here.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you for letting your dog
sit
nap
on your lap.
in my lap for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And if you ever put mushrooms on my pizza,
That's assuming you're going to come back to my restaurant.
We
I don't
will
know.
never speak again.
That's it. That'll be the end of it.
Don't even try to sneak mushrooms.
Wow. See, this is what's amazing. All the things we talked about abortion, we talked about some controversial stuff. It's the mushrooms.
It's the mushrooms.
Yeah.
Hands down. I will cut you.
Oh, man.
That is a deal breaker.
No, huh?
No.
Okay.
Done.
All right.
Thank you so much for checking out this podcast. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. If you haven't done so, please subscribe and tell your friends. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, you can send me an email at whycan'twetalkaboutthat@proton.me. Also, something new is that we will be starting a Facebook group for those that want to join in the conversation. Just search for Why Can't We Talk About That podcast on the Facebook search bar and ask to join the group. Thanks. Here's a clip from next week's episode.
It's okay. It's okay that you're in this period of time where you're like, I don't even know if God's real.
Right.
I've done that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think everyone needs to go through that in order to find out for themselves, is God real?
Right.
And I just told them, as long as you keep seeking him, just don't ignore him, don't pretend like he doesn't exist for yourself. But if you're truly seeking, then that's a healthy place to be.